There are 3 lies Victoria has been living with for 7 years. The first, that Eric saved her out of kindness. The second, that the mark on her shoulder blade is a scar from the fire that killed her pack. The third, that she has no mate bond because the moon goddess forgot about her. All 3 lies shatter in the same moment, when Eric kisses another woman at the altar and Victoria's chest splits open like someone just reached inside her ribcage and tore out her still-beating heart. The pain drops her to her knees right there in the crowd. No one notices. They're too busy celebrating. Too busy watching their alpha finally choose a mate, finally secure an alliance, finally do what's right for the pack. The ceremonial drums are pounding. Wolves are howling in joy. The bonfire at the center of the clearing roars higher, casting golden light across Eric's face as he pulls his new mate closer, his hand gentle on her waist, his eyes soft in a way Victoria has never seen them. And then it happens. The mark on her shoulder blade, the one she thought was dead tissue, burnt flesh, a reminder of survival, ignites. Actually ignites. Silver fire races beneath her skin, spreading across her back like wings unfurling, and suddenly she's not kneeling in the dirt anymore. She's standing in a memory that isn't hers. She's 17-year-old Eric, hand pressed to his chest, staring down at 11-year-old her sleeping in his father's house, and she feels what he felt that night, the mate bond snapping into place like a lightning strike. Powerful and terrifying and absolutely forbidden. She feels his horror, his panic, because the bond is killing her. Actually killing her. Her small body convulsing in her sleep, her wolf too young and too damaged to survive the weight of a true mate connection. She feels him make the choice. Reject it. Bury it. Lie. Call her sister. Keep her close, but never too close. Wait until she's strong enough. Wait until she's ready. Wait until the bond won't destroy her. The vision ends. Victoria gasps, and she's back in the clearing, dirt under her fingernails, her entire body shaking with the truth of what she just witnessed. Eric rejected their mate bond to save her life. And she never knew. Victoria doesn't remember deciding to run. She only knows that one moment she's standing at the edge of the crowd, fingers digging into the bark of an ancient oak, and the next her feet are tearing through the forest floor, pine needles and broken twigs slicing at her bare soles. The ceremonial dress they made her wear, pale silver, meant to honor the pack's beloved foster daughter, catches on low branches and rips. She doesn't stop to free it. She pulls harder, and the fabric tears away like shed skin. The storm that's been building all evening finally breaks. Rain comes down in sheets, cold and punishing, turning the ground to mud beneath her. Thunder rolls across the mountains, so deep she feels it in her bones, and for one wild moment she wonders if the sky itself is angry on her behalf. If the moon goddess, who has been silent for so long, is finally paying attention. Behind her, voices rise. Someone shouts her name. Not Eric. Never Eric. He's too busy with his new mate, his chosen mate, the wolf-born daughter of the Northern Ridge Alpha who comes with alliances and political power and everything Victoria could never offer. She hears her pack sister Mira calling, worry threading through her voice, but Victoria can't stop. Won't stop. Because if she stops, if she turns around and faces them, she'll have to explain why she's running. Why her chest feels like it's caving in. Why her wolf is howling beneath her skin like something caged and dying. And she can't explain what she doesn't understand herself. The forest swallows her whole. These woods have been her sanctuary since she was 11 years old, since the night Eric found her half-frozen at the border, covered in ash and blood that wasn't hers, unable to speak about where she'd come from or why her entire pack had burned. He'd wrapped her in his coat, she remembers that, remembers how it smelled like pine and smoke and something wild she couldn't name. He'd carried her back to his father's house and told everyone she was under his protection. His little sister, he'd said. His responsibility. For 7 years, she believed him. Victoria's lungs burn. Her legs shake. She's been running for miles now, driven by instinct more than thought, and the bond that snapped during the ceremony won't stop pulling at her insides like a fishhook dragging through soft flesh. She's heard about rejection before, whispered in the kind of hushed tones people use when they talk about tragedy. When a mate bond breaks, they say, it feels like dying slowly. Like your soul is being peeled away one layer at a time. They never mentioned it would feel like this. Like her entire existence was a lie. Like every moment Eric spent protecting her, training her, teaching her to be strong, every moment was just him playing a role, acting out some duty he felt toward the broken girl he'd found in the woods. She collapses against a massive stone outcropping, its surface slick with rain and moss. The cold seeps into her immediately, but she welcomes it. Anything to numb the fire spreading through her chest. Her hands are shaking so violently she has to press them flat against the rock to keep them still. Water streams down her face, rain and tears mixed together, impossible to separate. This is when she feels it. The stirring. Deep in her core, where her wolf has slept dormant for 7 years, something moves. Something vast and ancient and utterly terrifying. Her breath catches. Her vision blurs at the edges, and suddenly she's not seeing the storm-dark forest anymore. She's seeing fire. Flames the color of moonlight, silver and devastating, consuming everything they touch. She sees a mark burned into flesh, 2 crescent moons intertwined, overlapping wrong. She sees Eric's face twisted in anguish, younger, maybe 17 or 18, his hand pressed to his chest as he makes a choice that will haunt him forever. The vision shatters. Victoria gasps and her eyes snap open. The rain is still falling. The forest is still dark. But something has changed. The air around her hums with energy she doesn't recognize, energy that seems to respond to her presence like it's been waiting for her to wake up. She's not alone. The realization hits her the same moment she catches his scent. Wild sage and winter wind. Nothing like Eric's warm, familiar smell. This is sharper. Dangerous. It cuts through the rain and finds her like a blade finding its mark. Victoria pushes herself upright, her back pressed against the stone, her heart hammering against her ribs. She can't see him yet, but she knows he's there. Watching. Circling. Then he steps into view, and the world tilts. He's tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair plastered to his face by the rain and eyes that catch what little light filters through the canopy, amber, bright, predatory. Not from her pack. Not from any pack she recognizes. His clothes are travel-worn, marked by days or weeks in the wilderness, and there's a strange symbol stitched into his leather jacket that makes her wolf stir uneasily. A spiral of thorns around a broken moon. The mark of the outcast bloodline. Wolves who rejected pack law centuries ago and were banished to the Shadowlands, the territories beyond the mountains where even alphas fear to go. He shouldn't be here. The borders are watched. Guarded. No outsider crosses into Crescent Hollow territory without being intercepted, and certainly not one bearing that mark. Yet here he stands, rain dripping from his jaw, looking at her like he's found exactly what he's been searching for. When he speaks, his voice is low, rough with something that might be awe or might be hunger. Victoria can't tell which terrifies her more. So you're the one, he says. The girl with 2 shadows. The wolf who doesn't know what she carries. Her breath stops. Her whole body goes rigid. How does he know? How could he possibly know about something she's only just begun to suspect, something that doesn't even have a name yet, something she felt for the first time mere minutes ago when Eric's bond snapped and her wolf woke screaming? The stranger takes a step closer. Water streams off his shoulders, and lightning flashes behind him, illuminating his face in stark detail. There's no cruelty there. No mockery. Only intensity so fierce it makes her skin prickle. You felt it, didn't you? He continues, his words careful, deliberate. When he claimed another. When the bond you didn't know existed tore open inside you. That's when the truth started bleeding through. Victoria's nails dig into the stone behind her. Her voice comes out harder than she feels, sharp with the kind of defiance she's learned from 7 years of pretending to be brave. I don't know what you're talking about. And I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Now. Before my pack. Your pack, he interrupts, and there's something almost sad in the way he says it. Just watched their alpha bind himself to another woman while you ran into the storm alone. I don't think they're coming for you, Victoria. Her name in his mouth feels like a violation. Like he's reached inside her chest and touched something private. She pushes off the stone, putting distance between them, though her legs threaten to give out with every step. How do you know my name? Because I've been looking for you for 3 years. He doesn't follow her, doesn't try to close the distance, and somehow that's worse. It means he's confident. It means he doesn't think she can run. Since the night I woke up with your mark burned into my shoulder and knew the moon goddess had chosen me to share a bond that should have been impossible. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her mark. On his shoulder. Which means no. No, that's not possible. The mate bond only manifests once, only between two souls chosen by fate and hers already. But it didn't, did it? Eric never claimed her. Never even told her they were meant to be together. He just watched her from a distance, kept her close, called her sister, and when the time came to choose, he chose someone else. The stranger's eyes never leave her face. My name is Andrew, he says quietly. And I'm here to tell you the truth your alpha has been hiding. You weren't meant for one mate, Victoria. You were marked by 2. A dual mate bond, forged by the moon goddess herself, the first in 1,000 years. One bond formed when you were children. One that formed when you rejected the first. Thunder crashes overhead, so loud it rattles her teeth. Victoria's vision swims. Her wolf surges beneath her skin, and suddenly she feels it, the mark on her left shoulder blade, the one she's had since she was 11, the one she always thought was a scar from the fire that killed her first pack. It burns. Actually burns, like someone's pressing hot silver directly into her flesh. She stumbles. Andrew moves faster than should be possible, catching her before she hits the ground. His hands are warm despite the rain, solid, real, and the moment his skin touches hers, something inside her clicks into place. A second bond, raw and new and utterly unwanted, floods through her veins like liquid fire. No, she gasps, trying to pull away. No, this can't be. It is, he says, and there's no triumph in his voice. Only certainty. Only truth. And if you don't learn to control it, if you make the wrong choice, both bonds will collapse inward and take your entire pack with them. That's the curse of the dual mate mark. Unite 2 bloodlines, or destroy them all. The forest spins. The rain keeps falling. And somewhere in the distance, back toward the ceremonial clearing where Eric just bound himself to another woman, Victoria swears she hears a wolf howling, a sound of grief so profound it splits the night in 2. If you've ever felt the sting of being someone's second choice, if you've ever wondered what it means to be marked by fate itself, then stay with me. Subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart stories, because this tale has only just begun to burn. Eric crashes through the tree line like a force of nature, and the first thing Victoria notices is that he's alone. No new mate trailing behind him. No pack warriors flanking his sides. No witnesses to whatever is about to happen in this storm-soaked clearing where she stands marked by silver fire, holding the hand of an outcast wolf who shouldn't exist in her life, but does anyway. Just Eric. Drenched by rain. Eyes wild with something that looks like panic and grief twisted together. His wolf so close to the surface that his eyes are flickering between human brown and alpha gold, unable to decide which form can protect her better. He stops 10 feet away. His chest is heaving like he's been running for miles, and maybe he has. Maybe the moment her mark activated, the moment both bonds flared to life, he felt it through their connection and abandoned everything, the ceremony, the vows, the carefully constructed alliance, just to get to her. The look on his face when he sees Andrew makes something crack inside her chest. It's not anger. It's not even surprise. It's recognition. like he's been dreading this exact moment for years, watching for it, preparing for it, and now that it's finally here, he has no idea how to stop what's already been set in motion. Let her go. Eric's voice comes out rough, commanding, layered with the alpha power that makes lesser wolves drop to their knees. But Andrew doesn't move. Doesn't release Victoria's hand. Doesn't even flinch under the weight of that command, and that tells her something crucial about the outcast standing beside her. He's not bound by pack law the way other wolves are. He's not subject to alpha commands. He's free in a way that should be terrifying, but somehow isn't. She's not a prisoner, Andrew says calmly, his amber eyes meeting Eric's gold ones without hesitation. She's holding my hand because she chose to. Because I told her the truth you've been hiding for 7 years. The air between them crackles with tension so thick Victoria can taste it. 2 alphas. 2 wolves who've both claimed a piece of her soul. 2 men who represent completely different futures, completely different choices, completely different paths that all end in someone getting destroyed. Eric's gaze finally shifts to her, and the pain in his eyes nearly breaks her. She's seen him angry before. Seen him frustrated, disappointed, even scared during the worst pack conflicts. But she's never seen him look at her like this, like he's watching her slip away and there's nothing he can do to stop it. Victoria. Her name comes out soft, pleading, wrapped in years of carefully hidden emotion that's finally bleeding through. Whatever he told you, whatever you think you know. Is it true? Her voice cuts through his words like a blade. She pulls her hand free from Andrew's grip, and the loss of contact makes both bonds surge with protest. But she needs space. Needs distance. Needs to look Eric in the eyes and hear him say it. The mate bond. When I was 11. Did you feel it? The silence that follows is deafening. Even the storm seems to hold its breath. Eric's jaw tightens. His hands curl into fists at his sides. And for a long moment, she thinks he's going to lie. Going to maintain the fiction, keep playing the protective older brother, refuse to admit the truth even now when it's burning between them like wildfire. Then his shoulders drop. His eyes close. And when he opens them again, the gold has bled through completely, his wolf rising to the surface in a way he's never allowed around her before. Yes, the word comes out broken. I felt it the moment I found you in those ruins. 11 years old, covered in ash and blood, your wolf so damaged I didn't think you'd survive the night. And the bond, his voice cracks. The bond was killing you, Victoria. Actually killing you. Your body was too young, too traumatized, too broken to handle the weight of a true mate connection. Every minute I stayed near you, every time our wolves recognized each other, your heart would stop. Your breathing would fail. I watched you die 3 times in my arms that first night. The confession hangs in the rain-soaked air between them. Victoria's breath catches in her throat. She can see it now, 17-year-old Eric, barely more than a boy himself, holding her dying body and making an impossible choice. So I rejected it, Eric continues, and his voice is raw with old pain. I buried the bond so deep even you couldn't feel it. I became your brother. Your protector. Your shield against everything that wanted to hurt you, including fate itself. Because I thought, he stops. Swallows hard. I thought if I could just keep you safe long enough, if I could give you time to heal and grow stronger, maybe someday the bond could exist without destroying you. Thunder rumbles overhead, softer now. The storm is passing, leaving behind the kind of stillness that comes before dawn, before everything changes irrevocably. But it didn't work that way, Andrew says quietly from beside her. Not gloating. Not triumphant. Just stating facts with the kind of certainty that comes from years of research, years of searching, years of understanding what Eric couldn't. Rejection leaves scars. And her scar was deep enough that the moon goddess saw fit to give her a second chance. Me. Eric's eyes snap to Andrew, and the look he gives the outcast is pure alpha rage. You have no right. I have every right, Andrew interrupts, his voice still calm but edged with steel now. I didn't ask for this bond any more than she did. But 3 years ago, The moon goddess burned her mark into my shoulder and showed me exactly what would happen if I didn't find her before you made your rejection permanent. So I searched. I tracked rumors. I followed every whisper about an Ashwood daughter who survived the purge. And tonight, when you bound yourself to another woman, when you made the choice that activated her second bond completely, I was finally able to cross your borders and tell her what you should have told her years ago. Victoria's head is spinning. She can feel both bonds pulling at her now, can feel Eric's old grief and Andrew's fierce determination, can feel the weight of two different versions of protection pressing down on her shoulders until she can barely breathe. You had no right to keep this from me, she says, and she's not sure which of them she's talking to anymore. Maybe both. 7 years, Eric. 7 years of watching you from a distance. 7 years of thinking I wasn't good enough, wasn't wolf enough, wasn't worthy of being anything more than your responsibility. And all that time you knew. You knew we were mates, and you let me believe. I let you believe you were safe, Eric cuts in, and there's desperation in his voice now. I let you believe you were just a girl I saved, because the alternative was watching you die. Do you understand that? Every single day, I had to choose between telling you the truth and keeping you alive. And I chose your life. Every single time. He takes a step forward, and Andrew tenses beside her, ready to intervene if necessary. But Eric's focus is entirely on Victoria, his eyes burning with intensity that makes her heart stutter. The elders wanted you dead, he says. The moment I brought you home, the moment they realized you were an Ashwood daughter, marked by the moon goddess herself, they demanded I hand you over. They said you were too dangerous, too powerful, that letting you live would start another war, another cycle of bloodshed that would destroy every pack in the territories. The rain has slowed to a drizzle now, but Victoria barely notices. She's caught in Eric's gaze, in the raw truth bleeding through every word. I refuse, he continues. I told them you were under my protection. I made a deal with the Alpha Council. If I kept the bond dormant, if I never claimed you, if I made sure your power never fully manifested, they would let you live. That's why I called you sister. That's why I kept my distance. That's why his voice breaks completely. That's why I chose someone else tonight. Because the council demanded it. Because they said if I didn't bind myself to another mate within 7 years, they would consider our agreement void and send hunters to finish what they started when you were 11. The words hit Victoria like physical blows. The deal. The council. The constant threat hanging over her head that she never even knew existed. Every choice Eric made, every moment of distance, every time he looked at her and then looked away, it was all part of a desperate attempt to keep her alive. But you didn't tell me, she whispers, and her voice is shaking with anger and grief and betrayal all mixed together. You didn't trust me enough to let me know. You just decided my fate without giving me a choice. Because you were a child. Eric's composure finally cracks. You were 11 years old, traumatized, barely holding yourself together. What was I supposed to do? Tell you that we were mates, but I had to reject you or watch you die. Tell you that the elders wanted you dead and the only way to protect you was to pretend you meant nothing to me? You were a child, Victoria. I was trying to give you a chance to grow up before the world destroyed you. Andrew's hand finds her shoulder, a grounding touch that makes Eric's eyes flash with possessive fury. And now she's not a child anymore, the outcast says quietly. Now she's a woman who deserves to know the truth about what she is, what she carries, and what will happen if she doesn't learn to control both bonds. Eric's attention shifts to Andrew, and the air between them turns hostile. You think I don't know about the curse? You think I haven't spent 7 years researching every text, every prophecy, every scrap of information about the dual mate mark? I know exactly what happens if she chooses wrong. I know the bonds will collapse. I know the pack will die. That's why I've been so careful. That's why I've maintained the rejection while keeping her close enough to monitor. I was buying time. You were running out of time, Andrew corrects. The moment you bound yourself to another woman, you started a countdown. The rejected bond can't stay dormant now. It's awake, It's aware, and it's demanding to be completed or severed entirely. And if it's severed, I know what happens, Eric snarls. I've known since the beginning. Then you know she needs to learn how to balance both bonds, Andrew says. You know she needs training, guidance, someone who understands what it means to exist outside pack law, outside alpha commands, outside the systems that are designed to control wolves like her. He steps closer to Victoria, his presence solid and grounding. That's why I'm here. Not to steal her. Not to compete with you. But to teach her how to survive what you couldn't protect her from. The forest has gone quiet. The rain has stopped completely, leaving only the sound of water dripping from leaves and the distant howl of wolves back at the packlands. Dawn is coming. The sun will rise in less than an hour, and with it, the entire pack will know something has changed. They'll feel the shift in their alpha, the absence of their foster daughter, the strange magic humming through the territory like a warning bell. Victoria looks between the two wolves standing on either side of her impossible choice. Eric, who loved her enough to reject her. Andrew, who was marked by her through no choice of his own. Both of them offering different versions of protection, different paths forward, different futures that might save her or destroy everything. The elders, she says, her voice steadier now. They know, don't they? They felt the bonds activate. Eric's joy tightens. Yes. How long do we have? Days. Maybe a week if we're lucky. He runs a hand through his wet hair, frustration and exhaustion written across every line of his face. The council will demand you present yourself. They'll want to see the mark, confirm what you are, decide whether you're a threat that needs to be eliminated. And if I refuse? They'll send hunters. His eyes meet hers, and the sorrow in them is devastating. They'll send an army if they have to. The dual mate mark scares them, Victoria. It always has. The power to unite two bloodlines, two territories, two rival packs, it's a threat to the established order. They'd rather kill you than risk the chaos your existence represents. Andrew's hand tightens on her shoulder. Which is why she needs to leave. Tonight. Before the council mobilizes. Before they can trap her in pack politics and alpha commands. She's not going anywhere with you, Eric says, and his voice drops to a growl that's pure alpha dominance. You're an outcast. Your wolves are exiled for a reason. They rejected the moon goddess's laws, rejected pack structure, rejected everything that keeps our kind civilized. I'm not handing her over to someone who exists outside all accountability. And I'm not leaving her in the hands of a pack that just watched their alpha bind himself to another woman while she ran into the forest alone, Andrew shoots back. You made your choice tonight, Eric. You chose your duty over her. You chose your alliance over the bond. You don't get to claim her now just because you're scared of losing control. The accusation hangs in the air like a blade. Victoria can see Eric flinch, can see the truth of it hitting him hard enough to make his carefully maintained composure crack further. I chose to keep her alive, Eric says through gritted teeth. Everything I've done has been to protect her. By lying to her? Andrew challenges. By keeping her in the dark about her own fate? That's not protection. That's control. Stop. Victoria's voice cuts through their argument like steel. Both wolves go silent, their attention snapping to her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle. Both of you just stop. She pulls away from Andrew's touch, puts distance between herself and both of them, and wraps her arms around herself like she can hold the pieces of her breaking heart together through sheer will. You're both acting like I'm something to be claimed, she says, and her voice is shaking but strong. Like I'm a prize or a weapon or a problem that needs to be solved. But I'm not. I'm just, her breath catches. I'm just a girl who spent 7 years trying to be good enough, strong enough, worthy enough to belong somewhere. And now I find out that everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. That the bond one never felt was real but rejected. That I have a second mate I didn't ask for. That I'm marked by some ancient magic that could kill everyone I care about if I make the wrong choice. She looks at Eric, and her eyes are bright with unshed tears. You say you were protecting me, but all you did was take away my agency, my choice, my right to know the truth about my own existence. Then she looks at Andrew, and her expression hardens. And you show up in the middle of the worst night of my life and tell me we're bonded like it's some kind of gift. Like I should be grateful the moon goddess decided to tie my soul to a stranger because the person I actually loved couldn't claim me without killing me. Both wolves are silent now, watching her with expressions that mirror each other despite their differences: respect, wariness, and something that might be the beginning of understanding. I don't know what I am, Victoria continues, and her voice drops to barely above a whisper. I don't know if I'm an Ashwood daughter or a weapon or a curse waiting to destroy everyone. But I know this: I'm done being protected. I'm done being shielded. I'm done being kept in the dark while everyone else decides what's best for me. She straightens her spine, lifts her chin, and feels the silver fire on her back pulse in response to her resolve. If the elders are coming, then they're coming. If I have to learn how to control these bonds, then I'll learn. If I have to face the council and prove I'm not a threat, then I'll face them. But I'm going to do it my way. On my terms. With full knowledge of what I'm risking. The partial shift that's been gripping her body finally releases. Her claws retract. Her vision shifts back to human normal. And for the first time since the ceremony, since Eric kissed another woman and her world shattered, she feels like herself again. Damaged, maybe. Confused, definitely. But still standing. Still breathing. Still fighting. Eric takes a careful step forward. Victoria. No. She holds up a hand, stopping him. You don't get to make decisions for me anymore. Not about the bond. Not about my safety. Not about anything. If you want to be part of my life going forward, then you need to start treating me like a partner, not a responsibility. His face goes pale. I never meant. I know, she says softly. I know you were trying to protect me. I know you made impossible choices because you thought they were the only way to keep me alive. But those were your choices, Eric. Not mine. And I can't forgive you for taking that away from me, even if I understand why you did it. She turns to Andrew, and her expression is harder. And you need to understand something too. I don't know you. I don't trust you. This bond between us, it might be real, but it doesn't mean I'm yours. It doesn't mean I'm going to run away with you and learn outcast ways and reject everything I've ever known. You're going to have to earn my trust the same way everyone else does. Andrew's amber eyes search her face, and slowly, something that might be respect blooms in his expression. Fair enough. The sky is lightening now. Dawn is breaking through the clouds, painting the forest in shades of gray and silver. And with the light comes a sound that makes all three of them tense: howls from the pack lands. Not alarm anymore. Not celebration. Something else. Something that sounds like mourning and anger mixed together. They know. The pack knows something has happened to their alpha's bond, knows their foster daughter is missing, knows the strange magic rippling through their territory is connected to her somehow. We need to move, Eric says, and his voice has shifted into alpha mode, commanding, strategic, focused. The pack will be searching for us soon. If they find us like this, if they see you with him, he nods toward Andrew. They'll assume the worst. They'll think you've been taken, manipulated, turned against us. Let them think what they want, Victoria says. I'm done hiding. You're not hearing me. Eric's frustration bleeds through. The pack is loyal to me, but they're also terrified of what you represent. If they think you're a threat, if they think the dual mate mark makes you dangerous, then maybe it's time they face their fears, Andrew interrupts. Maybe it's time the pack stopped running from prophecy and started embracing what the moon goddess is trying to tell them. Eric rounds on him. You don't get to make that decision. You're not pack. You're not bound by our laws or our history or our consequences. No, Andrew agrees. But she is. And she just told both of us that she's making her own choices now. So maybe we should listen to her instead of arguing about what's best. The suggestion hangs in the air. Both alphas look at Victoria, waiting, and the weight of their attention feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump without knowing if there's water below or rocks. She takes a breath. Lets it out slowly. feels both bonds humming in her chest, Eric's old and familiar, Andrew's new and sharp. Both of them pulling at her. Both of them demanding acknowledgement. Both of them representing paths that could save her or destroy everything. I'm going back, she says finally. To the pack. To face whatever comes next. But I'm not going alone. She looks at Eric. You're going to tell them the truth. About the bond. About the rejection. About the deal you made with the council. No more secrets. No more lies. If they're going to judge me, they're going to do it with all the facts. Then she looks at Andrew. And you're coming with me. If the dual mate mark means I'm connected to both pack law and outcast freedom, then the pack needs to see that. They need to understand what I am before they can decide whether I'm a threat. Both wolves stare at her like she's just suggested walking into a lion's den covered in raw meat. That's suicide, Eric says flatly. The pack will tear him apart the moment they see the outcast mark. Then you'll stop them, Victoria says. You're still alpha. They still answer to you. Use that authority to keep him safe, or I walk away from all of this right now and you never see me again. The ultimatum hits Eric like a physical blow. She can see him calculating, weighing options, trying to find another way. But there isn't one. Not anymore. The time for careful manipulation and secret deals is over. And if the council demands your execution, he asks quietly, then you'll stand with me. She meets his eyes, holds his gaze. Not as my protector. Not as the alpha who saved me. As my mate who's finally ready to claim what he rejected 7 years ago. The words settle between them like a vow. Eric's breath catches. His eyes flash gold. And for the first time since he crashed through the tree line, she sees something other than panic and grief in his expression. Hope. Dangerous, desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, there's a way through this that doesn't end in ashes and blood. Victoria, he says, and her name sounds different in his mouth now. Not like a responsibility. Not like a burden. Like a prayer. If I claim you now, after binding myself to someone else, the political fallout will be catastrophic. I know. The alliance with the Northern Ridge will collapse. I know. The council will see it as a betrayal of our agreement. I know. She steps toward him, closing the distance he's maintained for 7 years. But I'm done living in fear of what might happen. I'm done being the girl everyone has to protect from herself. If I'm going to die, if the bonds are going to collapse, if the pack is going to burn, I'm going to do it on my terms. Fighting. Choosing. Living. She reaches up and touches his face, her palm against his cheek, and the moment their skin connects, the bond between them flares so bright it's almost blinding. 7 years of buried emotion, 7 years of careful distance, 7 years of love and longing and sacrifice, it all floods through the connection like a dam breaking. Eric closes his eyes, leans into her touch. And when he opens his eyes again, they're completely gold, his wolf rising to the surface with a possessiveness that makes her breath catch. If we do this, he says, his voice rough, there's no going back. The pack will know. The council will know. And they will come for you with everything they have. Then we'll be ready. She looks back at Andrew, who's been watching this entire exchange with an expression she can't quite read. Both of us. The outcast steps forward, and the tension between him and Eric is still there, still sharp, but underneath it now is something else. Understanding, maybe. Or at least the beginning of an uneasy alliance born from necessity and the shared knowledge that if they don't work together, she'll die and take half the territories with her. The pack isn't going to accept me, Andrew says bluntly. I'm everything they've been taught to fear. Then they'll learn, Victoria says. Or they'll prove they never deserved me in the first place. She looks between the two wolves, the alpha who loved her from a distance and the outcast who is bound to her by fate, and makes a decision that will change everything. We do this together, she says. All 3 of us. Or not at all. The first rays of true sunlight break through the canopy, illuminating the clearing in gold and silver light. The storm has passed. The forest is quiet. And somewhere in the distance, The howls of the pack grow louder as they search for their missing alpha and the girl he's been protecting for 7 years. Dawn has come. The truth is out. And the real battle, the one that will determine whether the dual mate mark saves them or destroys them all, is about to begin. They walk back through the forest in silence, and every step feels like marching toward execution. Victoria moves between them, Eric on her left, Andrew on her right, 2 wolves who represent everything she is and everything she could become. The silver fire on her back has dimmed but not disappeared, still tracing patterns across her skin like a brand that won't let her forget what she carries. Both bonds pulse in her chest with each heartbeat, a constant reminder that she's no longer just one person living one life. She's a bridge between 2 worlds, 2 bloodlines, 2 futures that might unite or collapse depending on choices she doesn't know how to make yet. The forest looks different in daylight. Less threatening. Less magical. Just trees and undergrowth and the ordinary dangers of the wilderness. But Victoria knows better than to trust the illusion of normalcy. Nothing about her life is normal anymore. Nothing about her life has ever been normal. She's just been too blind to see it. Her mind keeps circling back to the same moment, playing it over and over like a wound she can't stop touching. 11 years old. The fire. The screams. The way the world ended in ash and blood and flames that burned silver instead of gold. She's spent 7 years trying not to think about that night. 7 years burying the memories so deep she could almost convince herself they belonged to someone else, some other girl who died in those ruins while she walked away wearing her skin. But now, with the truth cracked open like a bone, the memories are bleeding through whether she wants them or not. The Ashwood pack wasn't large. Maybe 30 wolves at most, spread across territory that bordered the Shadowlands on one side and Crescent Hollow on the other. Neutral ground. Peacekeepers. Wolves who existed outside the major power structures, who served as mediators when conflicts erupted between territories. Her father was the alpha, strong, fair, respected by everyone who knew him. Her mother was a healer, one of the few wolves left who could still channel the old magic, the kind that came from the moon goddess herself rather than pack bonds or alpha commands. Victoria remembers being happy. She remembers running through the forests with other children, learning to track prey, listening to her mother's stories about the ancient wolves who could shift into forms that defied nature, wolves with wings, wolves that walked on 2 legs, wolves whose fur burned with elemental fire. She remembers the mark appearing on her shoulder blade when she turned 11. Her mother had gone pale when she saw it, had traced the intertwined crescents with shaking fingers, had whispered something to her father in a language Victoria didn't understand. They'd looked at her differently after that. Not with fear exactly, but with a kind of reverent caution, like she'd become something precious and fragile that might shatter if handled wrong. They never told her what the mark meant. They never explained why the elders started visiting more frequently, why hushed conversations would stop when she entered a room, why her father suddenly insisted she stay close to home instead of running wild with the other pack children. She remembers the night the hunters came. Remembers waking to screams and the smell of smoke. Remembers her mother shoving her toward the root cellar, her face streaked with ash and tears, her voice urgent as she said words Victoria didn't understand then, but understands now. You're Ashwood. You're marked. You're the bridge between worlds. Run, little flame. Run and don't look back. Then her mother was gone, rushing back into the chaos, and Victoria was alone in the darkness listening to her world burn above her head. She stayed hidden for hours. Maybe longer. Time stopped meaning anything in that suffocating darkness, with smoke seeping through the floorboards and the screams fading one by one until there was only silence. When she finally climbed out, when she pushed through the debris and emerged into the clearing that used to be her home, she found nothing but ash and bodies and Eric standing at the edge of the destruction like an avenging angel. He'd looked at her with those brown eyes that would later flash gold, and something had passed between them. Something she couldn't name then. Something she can name now. Recognition. the mate bond snapping into place. Fate claiming them both before either was ready. She'd collapsed. He'd caught her. And then nothing. Just blank spaces where memory should be, days that disappeared into fevered dreams and pain, and the distant awareness of Eric's voice telling her she was safe, she was protected, she was his little sister now. 7 years of that safety. 7 years of believing the lie because it was easier than facing the truth that everyone she loved had died to keep her alive. You're thinking about them. Andrew's voice cuts through her spiraling thoughts. He's watching her with those amber eyes that see too much, understand too much. Your first pack. The night they died. Victoria doesn't answer. Doesn't need to. The grief must be written across her face, bleeding through the bonds where both wolves can feel it pulsing like an open wound. The hunters weren't random, Andrew continues, his voice low enough that only she and Eric can hear. They were sent by the council. A purge sanctioned by the elders themselves because they were terrified of what you represented. I know, she says quietly. And she does know now, even though the knowing feels like swallowing glass. Eric told me. Did he tell you why? Andrew presses. Did he explain what makes the Ashwood bloodlines so dangerous that the council would rather commit genocide than risk letting you live? Eric's jaw tightens, but he doesn't interrupt. Doesn't try to stop Andrew from revealing more truths that he probably thinks she's not ready to hear. Maybe he's learning. Maybe he finally understands that protecting her through ignorance only made things worse. The Ashwood wolves were descended from the first shifters, Andrew says. The ones who learned how to transform from the moon goddess herself before there were pacts or territories or laws. They carried magic in their blood that predates everything, the ability to channel elemental power, to see across time, to bind souls together in ways that shouldn't be possible. Most of that power faded over generations, diluted by mixing with ordinary wolf bloodlines. But every 1,000 years or so, it resurfaces in a daughter who carries the full weight of the ancient magic. He pauses, letting that sink in. The forest around them has grown quieter, like even the birds and insects are holding their breath. You're not just marked by the moon goddess, Victoria. You're the magic. The dual mate bond is only one manifestation of what you can do. The silver fire, the ability to survive bonds that would kill any other wolf, the way the old growth responds to your presence, that's all Ashwood power. That's all you. The words settle into her bones like truth she's always known but never had language for. She thinks about the way flames have always made her feel calm instead of afraid. The way she can sense pack emotions without trying. The way her wolf, silent for so long, felt ancient when it finally stirred, older than her body, older than her lifetime, old as the forest itself. The last Ashwood daughter, who carried the full power united two warring packs 300 years ago, Andrew continues. She bound their alphas to her through the dual mate bond, forced them to work together, created a peace that lasted generations. But when she died, the bonds collapsed. The magic turned inward. And the resulting devastation killed thousands. Entire bloodlines were wiped out. Territories burned. The war that followed lasted 50 years. He stops walking, turns to face her fully. The council has been hunting Ashwood descendants ever since, trying to prevent another bonding, another catastrophic collapse. When they discovered you existed, that you bore the mark, they didn't see a girl. They saw a weapon that could destroy them all. So they tried to eliminate the threat before you could grow strong enough to be dangerous. Victoria's hands curl into fists. The silver fire on her back flares brighter, responding to the anger building in her chest. They killed my entire pack because of what I might become? They killed your pack because they were terrified of what you already were, Andrew corrects. The mark appeared when you were 11, which means your power was manifesting early. Earlier than any recorded Ashwood daughter before you. That made you more dangerous, not less. It meant you had the potential to be more powerful than any of your ancestors. Eric finally speaks, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Which is why I had to hide the bond. Why I had to keep you weak, untrained, cut off from your wolf. If you'd grown into your full power, if the elders had sensed what you could become, the deal I made wouldn't have mattered. They would have sent an army. And now they're going to anyway, Victoria says flatly. Because the bonds are active. Because the mark is awake. Because I'm exactly what they feared I'd become. Not exactly, Andrew says, and there's something sharp in his voice now. You're stronger. Because you survived 7 years of suppression and came out fighting. Because you've learned to endure without knowing why. Because the moon goddess gave you 2 mates instead of 1, which means she's preparing you for something the elders can't even imagine. He reaches out slowly, carefully, and touches the space between her shoulder blades where the mark burns. Even through her torn dress, even through the layers of wet fabric, his touch makes the silver fire flare bright enough that light bleeds through the cloth. This isn't a curse, he says quietly. It's a gift. The ability to hold 2 bonds without breaking, to channel power that would destroy anyone else, to stand at the intersection of pack law and outcast freedom, that's not weakness. That's evolution. That's the moon goddess telling the elders their time is over and a new order is coming. Victoria closes her eyes against the intensity of his conviction. She wants to believe him. Wants to believe there's purpose in this pain, meaning in the loss, some grand destiny that makes the deaths of everyone she loved feel like something other than senseless slaughter. But she's also spent 7 years watching other wolves live normal lives. Watching them find mates without complications, shift without pain, exist without carrying the weight of ancient prophecies on their shoulders. She's watched them be ordinary while she was always something other, something less, something that didn't quite fit no matter how hard she tried. What if I don't want to be evolution? She asks, and her voice comes out smaller than she intends. What if I just want to be a girl who gets to choose her own life, without the fate of entire packs resting on whether I make the right decision? Silence. Then Eric steps closer, close enough that she can feel the heat from his body, can smell the familiar scent of pine and smoke that's been home for 7 years. You don't get that choice, he says, and there's grief in his voice. Neither do I. Neither does he. He nods toward Andrew. We're all caught in this now. All tied to bonds and prophecies and magic we can't control. The only choice we have is how we face it. Together or alone. Victoria opens her eyes. Looks at him. Really looks at him for the first time since learning the truth. And she sees things she never noticed before, the exhaustion written into the lines around his eyes, the weight he's been carrying alone, the way he holds himself like he's one wrong move away from breaking completely. He's been protecting her for 7 years while slowly dying inside. Watching her from a distance while the mate bond he rejected tore at him constantly. Making impossible choices because he thought they were the only way to keep her alive. And maybe they were. Maybe without his sacrifice, without his careful manipulation of the council, without his willingness to bind himself to someone he didn't love, maybe she would have died years ago. Maybe the elders would have sent hunters. Maybe her story would have ended in ash just like her parents did. Or maybe his protection was exactly what kept her weak. What kept her from discovering her power, from learning to fight, from becoming strong enough to face the threats he was shielding her from. She'll never know now. The past is fixed. The choices are made. All she can do is move forward with the knowledge that every person who's ever claimed to protect her has also taken something from her: agency, truth, the right to determine her own fate. Tell me about the power, she says, looking at Andrew. The silver fire. What am I supposed to do with it? Andrew's expression shifts into something that might be satisfaction. Like he's been waiting for her to ask, waiting for the moment she stops focusing on what she's lost and starts claiming what she is. The Ashwood fire is elemental magic, he explains. It's tied to your wolf, to your emotions, to the bonds that connect you to others. When channeled correctly, it can heal or destroy. It can forge new bonds or sever old ones. It can protect or consume. The last Ashwood daughter used it to bind her mates to her permanently, creating a connection so strong that not even death could break it. Until she died and the bonds collapsed anyway, Victoria points out. Because she didn't train a successor, Andrew counters. because she thought the bonds were eternal, that her power was infinite, that she didn't need to prepare for what would happen when she was gone. She was arrogant. You won't be. You've already lost too much to take anything for granted. The path ahead narrows. They're getting closer to pack territory now. Victoria can feel it through her connection to the land, through the web of pack bonds that she's been part of for 7 years, even though she never fully belonged. The wolves are gathering. She can sense their confusion, their worry, their rising fear as they realize something fundamental has changed in their alpha. They're going to hate me, she says quietly, when they find out what I am, what I could do to them if the bonds collapse. Some will, Eric agrees. Some will be terrified. Some will demand the council take you. Some will want you dead themselves rather than risk the collapse. But some will stand with you, Andrew adds. Some will see what you represent, a chance to change the system, to break the cycle of fear and control that's dominated pack life for centuries. The outcasts exist because wolves like us refuse to live under laws designed to suppress anything the elders couldn't control. You could unite both worlds, pack and outcast, law and freedom, if you're strong enough. Big if. Huge if. The kind of if that comes with a body count if she gets it wrong. Victoria takes a breath, lets it out slowly, feels the bonds humming in her chest, both demanding attention, both pulling at her in different directions. Eric wants to protect the pack, maintain order, find a way to satisfy the council while keeping her alive. Andrew wants to burn it all down, reject the old laws, forge something new from the ashes. Both paths lead to the same destination, confrontation with forces that want her dead. The only question is whether she'll face those forces on her knees, begging for mercy, or standing with fire in her hands and the full weight of her power finally unleashed. They break through the tree line, and the pack lands spread out before them. The ceremony clearing is visible in the distance, still decorated with flowers and ribbons from last night's bonding. Wolves are gathered there, dozens of them, their voices carrying across the meadow even though Victoria can't make out individual words yet. But she can feel their emotions bleeding through the pack bonds. Confusion, anger, fear, and underneath it all, a current of something that might be hope or might be the beginning of rebellion. They know something has changed. They can feel it in their alpha's bond, in the strange magic humming through their territory, in the way the forest itself seems to be holding its breath waiting for what comes next. Eric stops at the edge of the trees. His hand finds hers, fingers threading through hers with a familiarity that 7 years of forced distance can't erase. Through the bond, she feels his fear for her, his determination to protect her, his absolute certainty that what happens in the next few hours will determine whether they all live or die. Once we step into that clearing, he says quietly, there's no going back. The pack will see you with him. He nods toward Andrew. They'll know the bonds are active. They'll understand what you are. And some of them will try to stop you before you can become a threat. Let them try, Victoria says, and her voice is steadier than she feels. I'm done hiding what I am to make other people comfortable. Andrew moves to her other side, his presence solid and grounding. The outcasts have a saying, better to burn bright and brief than flicker quietly into nothing. Your ashwood fire, Victoria. It's time to show them what that means. She looks between them, alpha and outcast, pack law and freedom, two halves of an impossible whole, and feels the silver fire on her back spread wider, brighter, marking her as something rare and powerful and absolutely terrifying. Then she steps forward, out of the shadows, into the light where her entire pack is waiting to judge whether she's their salvation or their doom. They don't make it to the ceremony clearing. Halfway across the meadow, the ground beneath Victoria's feet begins to hum. Not a sound exactly, more like a vibration that travels up through her bones, resonating in the same frequency as the silver fire burning across her back. The grass beneath her bare feet glows faintly, just for a moment, responding to her presence like the earth itself recognizes what walks upon it. Eric feels it too. His hand tightens around hers, his wolf rising to the surface with a warning growl. Something's wrong. Not wrong, Andrew corrects, his amber eyes scanning the tree line ahead. Awakening. The old growth is responding to her. It knows what she is. As if summoned by his words, the forest ahead begins to change. Trees that were ordinary moments ago now shimmer with an otherworldly light, their bark gleaming like polished silver, their leaves rustling with whispers in a language Victoria doesn't know but somehow understands. The air grows thick with magic, old magic, the kind that predates pack bonds and alpha commands, the kind that comes directly from the moon goddess herself. The pack wolves in the distance have gone silent. They've noticed the change too, noticed the way the territory itself is shifting, bending, revealing something that was hidden before. Some of them start moving toward the phenomenon, drawn by curiosity or concern. Others back away, instinct screaming at them to run from power they can't comprehend. What's happening? Victoria asks, though part of her already knows. The mark on her back is burning brighter now, spreading down her arms in intricate patterns that look like ancient runes, like a language written in fire and moonlight. The sacred grove is manifesting, Andrew says, and there's awe in his voice. It only appears for those who carry true power. The elders tell stories about it, a place between worlds where the moon goddess left her mark on the earth, where prophecies are revealed and destinies are sealed. No one's seen it in over 300 years. Not since the last Ashwood daughter walked these lands, Eric finishes, his voice tight. My father told me about it. Said his grandfather witnessed it once, saw the forest open up and reveal a shrine that defied natural law. But when they tried to return the next day, it was gone. Just ordinary trees and ordinary ground, like it never existed. The shimmering intensifies. The trees ahead part like curtains being drawn back, and suddenly there's a path where no path should be, stone steps carved into the earth, leading down into a grove that glows with silver light. Ancient pillars rise from the ground, covered in moss and vines, but still standing, still holding the weight of centuries. At the center of the grove sits an altar of dark stone, its surface marked with symbols that pulse in time with Victoria's heartbeat. She takes a step toward it before she consciously decides to move. The pull is magnetic, undeniable, like a hook buried deep in her chest dragging her forward. The bonds in her chest flare simultaneously, both Eric and Andrew feeling her compulsion, both moving with her because to resist would be like trying to stop the tide from rising. Victoria, wait, Eric starts, but his words die as they cross the threshold into the grove. The world shifts. Colors become more vivid. Sounds grow sharper. The air itself tastes different, cleaner, older, saturated with power that makes her skin prickle and her wolf howl in recognition. This place exists outside normal space, outside normal time. A pocket of the ancient world preserved by magic so strong even centuries can't erode it. The pack wolves who are approaching stop at the edge of the grove, unable or unwilling to follow. Some try to step forward and bounce back like they've hit an invisible barrier. Others don't even attempt it, their instincts warning them that this place is not meant for ordinary wolves. This is sacred ground. Holy ground. And only those marked by the moon goddess herself can walk here without being destroyed. Victoria descends the stone steps slowly, Eric and Andrew flanking her like honor guards or prisoners, she's not sure which. Every step makes the mark on her back burn brighter, makes the silver fire spread further across her skin until she's glowing with it, until she looks less like a girl and more like a living flame given human form. The altar draws her like gravity. Up close, she can see that the symbols carved into its surface aren't random. They tell a story, pictures of wolves with marks like hers, pictures of bonds being formed and broken, pictures of territories burning and being reborn from ash. The history of every Ashwood daughter, who ever carried the dual mate mark, preserved in stone that will outlast empires. At the center of the altar sits a bowl carved from crystal, so clear it's almost invisible. Inside the bowl, water glows with the same silver light as her fire, perfectly still despite having no visible source. Next to the bowl lies a dagger, ancient, its blade etched with more symbols, its handle wrapped in leather so old it should have crumbled to dust centuries ago, but somehow remains intact. The ritual of claiming, Andrew breathes, recognizing what he's seeing. The last step in awakening the dual-mate bond. The Ashwood daughters use this altar to bind their chosen mates to them permanently, to forge connections so strong that not even death could sever them. Eric goes rigid. She's not ready for that. She doesn't even understand what she is yet. The Grove doesn't care if she's ready, Andrew counters. It appeared because she's reached the threshold. Because the bonds are active and the power is awakening and the moon goddess is demanding she make a choice. What choice? Victoria asks, though she's afraid she already knows the answer. Andrew gestures to the altar, to the bowl and dagger waiting like tools of destiny. To complete the bonds or reject them. To claim both mates and unite the bloodlines, or to sever the connections entirely and face whatever comes alone. That's what this place demands. That's why it appears only when an Ashwood daughter reaches the moment of decision. The words settle over her like a sentence. Complete the bonds or reject them. Unite or destroy. Choose or die. The same impossible decision dressed in ritual and ancient magic, but still the same crushing weight on her shoulders. What happens if I do nothing, she asks. If I just walk away, leave the bonds as they are, refuse to perform the ritual? The bonds will continue to destabilize, Eric says quietly. Without the ritual to anchor them, without the formal claiming, they'll tear at you constantly. Pull you in different directions. Drain your strength. Eventually, the strain will kill you, and when you die, the bonds will collapse inward and take the pack with them. And if I perform the ritual? She looks at the dagger, at the crystal bowl, at the symbols that promise permanence at a cost she can't fully calculate. If I claim both of you? Bind us together the way my ancestors did. Silence. Then Andrew speaks, his voice careful. Then we become something new. Something the elders have never seen before. 3 souls bound so tightly that what affects one affects all. Your power becomes ours. Our strength becomes yours. We'd be unstoppable, or we'd destroy each other trying to coexist. There's a reason this ritual hasn't been performed in 300 years, Eric adds. The last Ashwood daughter who completed it went mad. The power was too much. The bonds too strong. She couldn't distinguish between her own thoughts and her mate's thoughts, couldn't tell where she ended and they began. When she finally died, her mates lasted less than a day before the grief killed them too. Victoria's hands shake as she reaches toward the altar. Her fingers hover over the crystal bowl, and the water inside responds, rippling outward in perfect circles despite her not touching it. The silver fire on her back flares brighter, and suddenly she's not seeing the grove anymore. She's seeing something else. Something older. She's standing in this same grove 300 years ago, watching a woman who looks like her, same dark hair, same silver eyes, same mark burning on her shoulder blades. The woman stands before this same altar with 2 wolves beside her. One wears the insignia of the Northern Ridge Pack, the other bears the mark of what would later become the Shadowland Outcasts. Both are bloodied. Both are exhausted. Both are looking at the woman with expressions that blend love and desperation and the kind of hope that comes from having no other options left. The territories are burning, the woman says, and her voice echoes across time. Our people are dying. The war between North and South has consumed everything. If we don't end it now, there won't be anyone left to save. She picks up the dagger, draws it across her palm. Blood wells up, bright red against pale skin, and drips into the crystal bowl. The water turns crimson, then silver, then something that's both and neither, a color that shouldn't exist, a color that makes Victoria's eyes hurt to look at directly. I am Ashwood, the woman says, and power rings in every syllable. I am marked by the moon goddess. I am the bridge between worlds, the bond between enemies, the flame that unites or destroys. And I claim you both. She turns to the first mate, takes his hand, presses her bloodied palm against his. The mark on her back flares, and an identical mark appears on his chest, burning into his flesh like a brand. He gasps, drops to his knees, but doesn't pull away. Accepts the pain because the alternative is worse. Then she turns to the second mate. Repeats the ritual. Another mark. Another bond forged in blood and magic and desperate necessity. When it's done, when both bonds are sealed, the woman staggers. Her mates catch her, holding her upright as power explodes outward from the altar in waves of silver light. The light spreads across the territories, racing through forests and over mountains, touching every wolf in both packs. Victoria can feel their confusion, their fear, their sudden understanding that something fundamental has changed. The war stops. Just stops. Not because anyone orders it to end, but because the bonds make it impossible to continue. Northern wolves can feel southern pain. Southern wolves can sense northern fear. The woman at the center has tied them all together through her own soul, made it so that to hurt one pack is to hurt the other, to kill an enemy is to kill a brother. Peace. Instant, absolute, enforced by magic that won't let them be anything other than united. For 30 years, it works. The territories thrive. The woman's power grows. Her mates remain devoted, bound to her by magic and love in equal measure. She births children who carry traces of her power, who help maintain the bonds when her strength falters. Then she dies. A hunting accident. Something stupid, preventable, meaningless. One moment she's tracking a deer through the forest, and the next an arrow meant for the prey pierces her heart. She's dead before her mates even feel the bond snap. The vision shifts. Victoria sees the mates' faces as they feel her die, sees the exact moment their souls begin tearing themselves apart, trying to follow her into death because the bonds won't let them exist without her. They last 6 hours. 6 agonizing hours of screaming, of their bodies literally breaking down, of the magic that united them turning inward and consuming them from the inside out. When they finally die, the bonds explode. Every wolf connected to the woman through pack ties feels it. Feels their souls being shredded. Feels magic ripping through them like wildfire. The lucky ones die instantly. The unlucky ones linger for days, their bodies failing piece by piece as the collapsed bonds poison everything they touch. By the time the devastation ends, 3,000 wolves are dead. Both territories are decimated. And the survivors are left with a warning carved into their bones: never again. Never let an Ashwood daughter complete the ritual. Never let the dual-mate bond reach full power. Never risk another collapse that could wipe out entire bloodlines in the span of a heartbeat. Victoria gasps, stumbling back from the altar. Eric catches her before she falls, his arms solid and warm and real. The vision fades, but the memory of it remains, burned into her mind like the mark on her back. You saw it, Andrew says, and it's not a question. You saw what happened to her. What the ritual cost. She died by accident, Victoria whispers, her voice shaking. Just an accident. And it killed thousands. Because the bonds were too strong, Eric says quietly. Because she tied herself so completely to her mates that when she died, the magic had nowhere to go except inward. It's the curse of the dual-mate bond. The power to unite comes with the risk of catastrophic collapse. Victoria pulls away from Eric's embrace, turns to face the altar again. The dagger still waits. The crystal bowl still glows. The symbols still pulse in time with her heartbeat, patient, eternal, demanding nothing but offering everything. So that's my choice, she says, and bitter laughter threatens to escape. Complete the ritual and risk killing everyone if I die. Or refuse the ritual and die anyway from the strain of unstabilized bonds, which will also kill everyone. Either way, the pack is doomed unless I somehow manage to stay alive forever and never make a single mistake. There might be another way, Andrew says carefully. The last Ashwood daughter bound both mates equally. Made the connections identical in strength. But you're different. You have one bond that's been dormant for 7 years and one that's only days old. If you could balance them without completing the full ritual, if you could acknowledge both without fully claiming both. That's never been done, Eric interrupts. There's no record of a dual-mate bond existing in partial states. It's all or nothing. Complete the ritual or reject it. Those are the only options. Because no one's ever tried anything else, Andrew argues. Because every Ashwood daughter before her followed tradition, performed the ritual exactly as their ancestors did, and paid the price for not innovating. But Victoria isn't like them. She survived 7 years with a rejected bond. She's already doing something that should be impossible. He turns to face her fully, his amber eyes intense. The moon goddess gave you 2 mates for a reason. Maybe that reason isn't to unite the territories the way your ancestors did. Maybe it's to show that there's a different path. A way to hold the bonds without letting them consume you. A way to be Ashwood fire without burning everyone you touch. The words settle into her bones like truth, like permission to try something no one's attempted before. But they also terrify her because innovation means risk, means gambling with lives, means potentially making everything worse while trying to make it better. The grove appeared for a reason, Eric says, his voice heavy. It's demanding you make a choice. If you walk away without performing the ritual, without acknowledging what you are, the magic will consider it a rejection. And rejection means death, Victoria finishes. Mine and everyone connected to me. I know. She steps closer to the altar. The silver fire on her back spreads wider, brighter, until she's glowing with it, until the entire grove is illuminated by her power. The crystal bowl calls to her. The dagger waits. And somewhere deep in her soul, she can feel both bonds pulling at her, Eric's old and familiar, Andrew's new and sharp, both demanding she choose, both demanding she claim them fully or let them go. But there's a third option forming in her mind. Risky, unprecedented, probably stupid, but the only path she can see that doesn't end in massacre. She picks up the dagger. The handle is warm in her palm, and the blade seems to hum with the same frequency as her fire. Both Eric and Andrew tense, watching her, waiting to see what she'll do. I'm not going to complete the ritual, she says quietly. Not the way my ancestors did. Not with blood and binding and magic that makes us inseparable unto death. She turns to face them, the dagger held loosely in her hand. But I'm not going to reject the bonds either. I'm going to acknowledge them, honor them, accept that I'm tied to both of you whether I want to be or not. And then I'm going to figure out how to exist with these bonds without letting them destroy me or anyone else. That's not how the ritual works, Eric says, but there's uncertainty in his voice. Hope, maybe. Or fear that she's about to make a mistake that will kill them all. Then I'll make it work differently, Victoria says. The Ashwood daughters before me followed tradition and died. Maybe it's time to break tradition. Maybe that's what the moon goddess has been waiting for all along, someone brave enough or stupid enough to try something new. She steps to the altar, places her free hand over the crystal bowl. The water inside ripples, responding to her presence. The silver fire spreads down her arm, races across her skin in patterns that look like the symbols carved into the altar itself. I am Ashwood, she says, and her voice echoes through the grove with power that makes the air shimmer. I am marked by the moon goddess. I am bound to 2 mates by fate and necessity. And I accept these bonds not as chains, but as connections, threads that tie me to others without consuming me. I claim my power without claiming my mates. I honor the past without being enslaved by it. And I choose to forge my own path forward. The dagger in her hand begins to glow. The crystal bowl brightens. And suddenly the entire grove is alive with magic, silver light exploding outward in waves, racing through the trees, across the meadow, touching every wolf gathered at the edge of the sacred ground. Victoria feels the bonds in her chest shift. Not completing. Not breaking. Just changing. Becoming something flexible instead of rigid. Becoming connections she can control instead of forces that control her. The mark on her back burns so bright she can see the light bleeding through her clothes, illuminating the grove like a second sun. Then, as suddenly as it began, the magic stops. The light fades. The grove goes quiet. And Victoria stands at the altar with the dagger in her hand and both bonds still humming in her chest, alive, acknowledged, but not fully claimed. Not yet. Maybe never. She turns to face Eric and Andrew. Both are staring at her with expressions she can't quite read: awe, fear, respect, uncertainty, all mixed together. "What did you do?" Eric asks quietly. "I chose not to choose," Victoria says. "Not yet. Not until I understand what I am, what these bonds mean, and what I'm willing to risk to keep everyone alive. The ritual is still here. The altar will wait. And when I'm ready, if I'm ever ready, I'll come back and finish what I started. But today, right now, I'm just acknowledging that I'm Ashwood Fire, and fire doesn't burn on anyone's schedule but its own." The grove begins to fade. The pillars grow transparent. The silver light dims. Within moments, they're standing in ordinary forest again, with ordinary trees and ordinary ground, and the only proof that the sacred place ever existed is the mark still burning on Victoria's back and the crystal clarity in her eyes. Behind them, at the edge of where the grove used to be, the pack has gathered. Dozens of wolves, all staring at her with expressions that range from terror to hope. They felt the magic. Felt it race through the pack bonds and touch every single one of them. They know what she is now, know what she carries, and they're waiting to see whether she'll be their salvation or their destruction. At the front of the crowd stands a figure that makes Victoria's blood run cold. An elderly woman dressed in robes that mark her as a council elder. Her eyes are sharp, calculating, filled with the kind of cold intelligence that has survived centuries by making hard choices and never regretting them. "Victoria Ashwood," the elder says, and her voice carries across the meadow like a judgment. "Daughter of the flame, bearer of the dual mate mark, the council demands your presence. Now." The elder doesn't wait for a response. She raises one withered hand, and suddenly there are wolves everywhere. Not from Victoria's pack, these are outsiders, council enforcers wearing silver collars that mark them as oath-bound to the elders above all else. They emerge from the forest like shadows given form, at least 30 of them, surrounding the meadow in a perfect circle that cuts off every escape route. Victoria's pack instinctively moves closer together, their wolves rising to the surface as they sense the threat. But they're outnumbered and they know it. These aren't ordinary wolves. These are warriors trained specifically to kill threats to the established order. Threats like her. Eric steps in front of Victoria, his body tense, his alpha power rolling off him in waves. "Elder Morgana, you're trespassing on Crescent Hollow territory without permission. Leave. Now." The elder, Morgana, smiles, but there's no warmth in it. Only cold calculation. "I have permission from the Alpha Council. Your father signed the agreement himself before he died, Eric. Any wolf bearing the Ashwood mark is subject to immediate council jurisdiction. You knew this when you brought her here. You knew this when you made your deal to keep her alive. That deal is still in effect," Eric says through gritted teeth. "I've kept the bond dormant. I've prevented her power from manifesting. I've done everything the council demanded." And yet, Morgana's gaze shifts to Victoria. Sharp as broken glass, here she stands, glowing with Ashwood fire, bearing 2 active mate bonds, having just performed magic in the sacred grove that hasn't appeared in 3 centuries. "I'd say your agreement has been thoroughly violated, wouldn't you?" The accusation hangs in the air like a noose. Victoria can feel her pack's emotions shifting: confusion, betrayal, fear. They're hearing for the first time that Eric made a deal with the council about her. That he's been hiding her true nature for 7 years. That everything they thought they knew about their alpha's foster sister was a carefully maintained lie. "She didn't complete the ritual," Andrew says, stepping forward to stand beside Eric. His presence causes a ripple of shock through both groups, council enforcers recognizing the outcast mark on his jacket, pack wolves realizing their territory has been breached by someone who should never have been able to cross their borders. Morgana's eyes narrow. And what would an outcast know about Ashwood rituals? Enough to recognize when one hasn't been finished, Andrew says calmly. The bonds are acknowledged but not fully claimed. The power is awakened but not unleashed. She's done something no Ashwood daughter has attempted before, found a middle path between completion and rejection. There is no middle path, Morgana snaps, her composure cracking slightly. The dualmate bond is all or nothing. Complete or rejected. She's either a threat that must be eliminated or a tool that can be controlled. And since she clearly can't be controlled, she gestures, and the enforcers begin closing the circle, moving inward with predatory precision. Victoria's pack bristles. Some shift into wolf form, ready to defend their territory. Others look uncertain, caught between loyalty to their alpha and fear of the power standing in their midst. She can feel them through the pack bonds, feel their confusion, their terror, their desperate wish that she would just disappear and take the threat with her. Stop. Victoria's voice cuts through the rising tension. Not loud, but filled with enough power that every wolf in the meadow freezes. The silver fire on her back flares brighter, and she feels both bonds surge in her chest, Eric's with protective fury, Andrew's with fierce approval. She steps out from behind Eric, moves to stand in the open space between her pack and the council enforcers. Alone. Exposed. Glowing with power that makes the grass beneath her feet shimmer and smoke. "You want me to present myself to the council?" she says, looking directly at Morgana. "Fine. I'll come willingly. But your enforcers stay here. You don't get to threaten my pack because you're afraid of what I might become. You don't make demands of the council," Morgana says coldly. "I'm not making demands. I'm offering you a choice." Victoria's voice is steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I come with you peacefully and you leave these wolves alone. Or you try to take me by force, and you find out exactly what Ashwood Fire can do when it's protecting something it loves. It's a bluff. Mostly. She has no idea how to actually control the power burning through her body, no idea if she could fight off 30 trained enforcers, no idea if threatening the council is brave or suicidal. But she's done being afraid. Done being passive. Done letting other people decide her fate while she stands by watching. Morgana studies her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she laughs. It's a harsh sound, bitter and old. "You have your mother's fire." Lyanna was just as defiant, just as certain she could face the council and win. "Do you know what happened to her?" The name hits Victoria like a physical blow. Lyanna. Her mother. The healer who died in the fire, who pushed her toward the root cellar with trembling hands and tear-streaked face. "The council killed her," Morgana continues, her voice devoid of emotion. "Sent hunters to your pack under the guise of a treaty negotiation. Your father suspected something was wrong, but Lyanna insisted on seeing the best in people. Insisted the council could be reasoned with. She was wrong. The hunters waited until everyone was gathered for the feast, then set the fires and slaughtered anyone who tried to escape." Victoria's hands curl into fists. The silver fire spreads faster, racing down her arms, across her chest, marking her as something elemental and dangerous. "You're admitting to genocide." "I'm stating facts," Morgana says. "The council saw a threat and eliminated it. As we've done for centuries. As we'll continue to do. The only reason you survived is because Eric got there first, because he convinced us he could keep you contained. But you're not contained anymore, are you? You're awake. You're powerful. You're exactly what we feared you'd become." She takes a step forward, and despite her age, despite her frail appearance, power radiates from her like heat from a forge. This isn't just an elder. This is someone who's survived centuries by being more ruthless than anyone else, more willing to make impossible choices and live with the consequences. "The council will see you," Morgana says. "They'll examine your bonds, test your power, determine whether you can be trusted to exist without destroying everything around you. And if they decide you're too dangerous," she doesn't finish the sentence. "Doesn't need to. The implication is clear." "And if I refuse?" Victoria asks, though she already knows the answer. "Then the enforcers will take you by force." and anyone who tries to stop them will be considered an accomplice to treason against the Council's authority. Morgana's gaze sweeps across the pack, landing on wolves who've known Victoria for 7 years, who've trained with her, laughed with her, treated her like family. That includes your pack. Your alpha. Anyone foolish enough to stand between the Council and a threat to pack stability. The threat lands like a hammer. Victoria can feel her pack's emotions shift again, fear spiking higher, loyalty warring with self-preservation. They don't want to abandon her. But they also don't want to die for someone who might destroy them anyway if her bonds collapse. She's not going anywhere with you. Eric's voice is pure alpha command, backed by 7 years of leadership and the absolute certainty that he won't let them take her. Victoria is under my protection. She's part of my pack. And I don't care what agreement my father signed, you're not taking her without going through me first. Morgana's expression doesn't change. Then you'll be the first to die when we come for her. Is that really the legacy you want, Eric? The alpha who destroyed his pack defending a girl marked for death. She's not just a girl, Eric says, and there's something raw in his voice now. She's my mate. Rejected to save her life, but my mate nonetheless. And I will burn this entire territory to ash before I let the Council murder her the way they murdered her family. The confession ripples through the pack like wildfire. Gasps. Whispers. Shocked faces as wolves realize what their alpha has been hiding, why he's been so protective of Victoria, why he bound himself to someone else despite clearly loving another. Morgana's eyes glitter with something that might be triumph. So you admit the bond exists. You admit you've been lying to the Council for 7 years. That changes everything, Eric. Now you're not just protecting a threat, you're complicit in creating one. The moment you rejected that bond instead of reporting it, the moment you chose her life over pack law, you became a traitor. She raises her hand again, and the enforcers move closer. Some have shifted into wolf form now, massive creatures with silver collars gleaming in the sunlight. Others remain human but pull weapons, silver daggers designed specifically to kill wolves who've grown too dangerous to control. Last chance, Morgana says. Surrender the girl, submit to Council judgment, and we'll consider the matter of your treason separately. Refuse, and you all die here. Today. Your pack scattered, your territory absorbed, your name erased from pack history as a warning to others who might think love is worth betraying everything we've built. Victoria feels the bonds in her chest flare with emotion. Eric burns with determination and grief. He's already decided to fight, already accepted that this might be how it ends. Andrew's pulses with cold fury. He came here to protect her, and he'll die doing it if necessary. But she also feels the pack bonds. Feels the ordinary wolves who just wanted to live their lives, raise their children, exist without being caught in council politics and ancient prophecies. They're terrified. They're angry. And some of them, maybe more than some, are starting to think that maybe Morgana is right. Maybe Victoria is too dangerous to protect. Maybe the smart choice is to hand her over and survive. Don't. Victoria's voice is quiet, but both Eric and Andrew hear it clearly. Don't sacrifice yourselves for me. Don't make the pack choose between their lives and mine. I'm not worth that. You are, Eric says fiercely. You're worth everything. Then prove it by letting me go. She looks at him, really looks at him, and pours every ounce of what she's feeling through their bond: love, gratitude, grief, and absolute certainty that she won't let him die for her. Let me face the council. Let me prove I'm not a threat. If they kill me anyway, her voice cracks. At least the pack survives. At least you survive. That's what matters. Like hell, that's what matters, Andrew growls. You think I've spent 3 years searching for you just to watch you walk to your execution? You think the moon goddess bound us together so you could surrender to wolves who are too afraid to accept change? I think the moon goddess doesn't care whether I live or die, Victoria says bitterly. I think she marked me as a bridge between worlds and didn't bother to give me instructions on how to keep both sides from collapsing. I think I'm exactly what Morgana says, a threat no one knows how to handle, including me. The admission costs her. She feels both bonds react, Eric's with denial, Andrew's with frustration. But she also feels something else through the pack bonds. Relief. Shameful, guilty relief that she's willing to go, that they won't have to choose between her and their own survival. She hates them for it. Hates herself more for understanding it. "I'll make you a deal," she says, turning back to Morgana. "I'll present myself to the council willingly. I'll submit to their examination, their tests, whatever they want. But in exchange, you swear on your elder authority that my pack goes unpunished. That Eric keeps his position as alpha. That no one suffers consequences for what happened here today." Morgana considers this. And the outcast? What about him? Victoria glances at Andrew, sees the fury in his amber eyes, the absolute refusal to let her do this alone. He goes free. Back to the Shadowlands. No pursuit, no punishment. The bonds between us stay acknowledged but dormant. He's not part of this conflict. "I am absolutely part of this conflict," Andrew snarls. "I'm not leaving." "Yes, you are." Victoria cuts him off, and she lets power bleed into her voice, power she doesn't fully understand but uses anyway. "Because if you stay, they'll use you against me. They'll hurt you to control me. And I won't watch another person I care about suffer because of what I am." The words hit him like a blow. For a moment, she thinks he'll argue, will refuse to abandon her, will make this harder than it already is. Then his expression shifts into something colder, more calculating. He's not accepting her decision. He's strategizing, planning, preparing for the next move in a game she's only just realized they're playing. "Fine," he says quietly. "I'll leave. But hear me, Victoria Ashwood. The outcasts don't abandon their own. And whether you like it or not, you're one of us now. The moment you chose to forge your own path instead of following tradition, the moment you refused to let the council dictate your fate, you became outcast. And we protect what's ours." He turns and walks toward the forest, and the council enforcers let him go because Morgana waves them back. She's gotten what she wanted. The girl surrendering. The pack divided. The rebellion quashed before it could truly begin. But as Andrew reaches the tree line, he looks back one last time. His amber eyes meet hers across the meadow, and through their bond, she feels his promise. This isn't over. This isn't goodbye. This is strategy. Retreat to fight another day. Survive to save her when the council inevitably tries to destroy what they can't control. Then he's gone, disappeared into the shadows, and Victoria is left standing alone between two worlds, the pack she's loved for 7 years, and the council that wants her dead. "A wise choice," Morgana says, satisfaction bleeding through her cold composure. "Perhaps you're smarter than your mother after all. She fought to the bitter end. You, at least, understand when you're beaten." The words are meant to wound. Meant to make her feel weak, cowardly, defeated. But Victoria just looks at the elder and smiles, a sharp, dangerous smile that makes silver fire dance in her eyes. "I'm not beaten," she says quietly. "I'm choosing my battlefield. There's a difference." She walks forward, toward Morgana, toward the enforcers, toward whatever fate the council has planned. But as she passes Eric, she stops. Looks at him one last time. Reaches up and touches his face the way she did in the forest, when she first learned the truth about their bond. "I love you," she says, simple and true. "I've loved you since I was 11 years old, even when I didn't understand what that meant. Even when you were calling me sister and keeping me at a distance. I loved you. I still love you. And if they kill me," her voice wavers, "know that I don't regret any of it. Not the bond. Not the choice. Not you." Eric's control shatters. He pulls her close, buries his face in her hair, and through their bond she feels 7 years of buried emotion flood through: love, regret, desperation, grief, and fury at the impossible situation they've been forced into. "I'm coming for you," he whispers against her temple. "The moment you're in danger, the moment they decide to kill you, I'm coming. And I'll bring every wolf who still believes in justice over fear. You hear me? You're not dying alone." "I know," she says, even though she doesn't believe it. even though she thinks by the time he mobilizes a rescue, she'll already be dead. I know. She pulls away, steps back, and lets the council enforcers surround her. They bind her hands with silver chains that burn against her skin, suppressing her power, dampening the bonds until they're barely whispers in her chest. The pain is excruciating, but she doesn't make a sound. Doesn't give Morgana the satisfaction of seeing her break. As they lead her away from the meadow, away from her pack, away from everything she's ever known, Victoria looks back one last time. Sees Eric standing alone, his pack gathered around him but separate, uncertain. Sees the place where the sacred grove appeared, now just ordinary ground with no evidence of the magic that manifested there. Sees her future disappearing with every step. But she also sees something else. Movement in the forest. Shadows that shouldn't be there. Andrew keeping his promise, following at a distance, refusing to abandon her despite agreeing to leave. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Maybe knowing she's not completely alone, that someone is watching, waiting, planning her rescue, is enough to keep fighting. Morgana leads her toward a transport waiting at the edge of the territory. A cage on wheels, designed to hold dangerous wolves, to transport them to council headquarters where they'll be judged and sentenced and executed if necessary. Your mother screamed when we put her in chains, Morgana says conversationally. Begged us to spare her pack, promised she'd do anything we asked if we just let the others live. We killed them all anyway. She died knowing she failed to protect the people she loved. The cruelty is deliberate, designed to break her. But Victoria just looks at the elder and sees something Morgana doesn't expect. Pity. You're terrified, Victoria says quietly. Not of me. Not of what I am. You're terrified of what I represent. Change. Evolution. The possibility that the old ways are dying and you can't stop it no matter how many Ashwood daughters you murder. That's why you're telling me about my mother. Not to hurt me. To convince yourself that you're still in control. That you can still win. Morgana's face goes cold. I am in control. And you've already lost. Maybe, Victoria agrees as they reach the cage. Or maybe I just changed the game. They shove her inside. Lock the door. And as the transport begins moving, carrying her away from everything she loves toward a council that wants her dead, Victoria closes her eyes and reaches through the bonds, both of them, even muted by silver, still alive, still connecting her to two wolves who would burn the world to save her. Through Eric's bond, she sends one message, trust me. Through Andrew S. bond, she sends another, be ready. Then she opens herself to the silver fire still burning beneath her skin, still alive despite the chains, and begins planning not her escape, but her revolution. The council thinks they've won. They think they've captured a threat and neutralized a rebellion before it could begin. They have no idea what's coming. The cage rattles as the transport moves through the forest, and Victoria sits with her back against the cold metal bars, silver chains biting into her wrists. The pain is constant, a low burn that keeps her power suppressed, keeps the bonds muted to barely perceptible whispers. But even muted, she can still feel them. Feel Eric's anguish as the distance between them grows. Feel Andrew's steady presence following somewhere in the shadows, never close enough to be detected, but never far enough to truly leave. The other prisoners in the transport are silent. 3 wolves, all bound in silver like her, all heading to council judgment for crimes she doesn't know and doesn't ask about. They won't meet her eyes. Won't acknowledge her presence. They've heard the whispers, seen the silver fire, understand that she's not like them. She's not a criminal. She's something worse. A prophecy. A threat. A weapon the council can't control. Morgana rides at the front of the transport, her back rigid, her attention focused on the path ahead. She hasn't spoken since they left Crescent Hollow territory, hasn't looked back to check on her prisoners. She doesn't need to. The silver chains do the work for her, keeping them weak, compliant, manageable. But Victoria isn't thinking about the chains or the elder or the council waiting at the end of this journey. She's thinking about a memory that's been trying to surface since the sacred grove appeared. A memory she's been burying for 7 years because it hurt too much to examine, because understanding it would mean accepting truths she wasn't ready to face. She's 14 years old again, sitting by the river that runs through Crescent Hollow territory. Summer evening, the air thick with heat and the sound of crickets. She's been living with Eric's pack for 3 years now, training harder than anyone, trying to prove she deserves the protection he's offered. Trying to be worthy of being called his sister. Eric finds her there as he always does when she's been gone too long. He's 20 then, already carrying the weight of future alpha responsibilities, already showing signs of the leader he'll become. He sits beside her without asking permission, his shoulder almost touching hers, close, but not quite, maintaining that careful distance he always keeps. "You've been avoiding the pack gathering," he says. "Not an accusation. Just a fact." "I don't belong there," young Victoria says, throwing stones into the water. They're all laughing and bonding and being family. She stops, swallows the words. The girl they took in. The charity case. The reminder that their alpha is too soft, too kind, too willing to protect wolves who bring nothing but risk. "You belong," Eric says quietly. "Your pack. He stops, and she sees something flash across his face. Pain. Longing. Something she doesn't have words for yet. "I'm what?" she asks, looking at him directly for the first time that evening. And for just a moment, just a heartbeat, she sees it. Sees the way he looks at her like she's something precious, something he can't have, something that's killing him to be near. Then the mask slams back down, and he's just her protective older brother again, the alpha's son doing his duty. "You're part of this pack," he says firmly. "And anyone who makes you feel otherwise answers to me." He stands, offers her his hand to help her up. She takes it, and when their palms touch, something electric passes between them. She's too young to understand it, too damaged to recognize what it means. But she feels it anyway, a connection that goes deeper than pack bonds, stronger than friendship, more permanent than any promise. Eric feels it too. She knows because he yanks his hand back like she burned him, takes a step away, puts that careful distance between them again. "We should get back," he says, his voice rough. "The ceremony starts soon." She nods, follows him back through the darkening forest. And she doesn't understand why her chest aches. Why watching him walk ahead feels like abandonment even though he's right there. Why she wants to reach out and touch him again just to feel that electric spark, that sense of connection she's been missing since her pack died. It will be years before she understands what she felt that evening. Years before she learns about mate bonds and rejection, and the careful game Eric has been playing to keep her alive. But even then, at 14, some part of her knew. Some part recognized him as hers and grieved that he would never claim her. The memory shifts. She's 16 now, training in the practice yard with other young wolves. Learning combat, strategy, how to use her smaller size as an advantage against larger opponents. She's good at it. Better than good. The suppressed bond and dormant wolf should make her weaker, but instead they make her fierce, driven, determined to prove herself through skill if not through power. Eric watches from the edge of the yard. He always watches her training sessions, always finds excuses to be nearby. She tells herself it's because he's protective, because he feels responsible for her. She never lets herself believe it might be something more. She's sparring with Kellen, a wolf 2 years older and twice her size. He's not holding back anymore. She's proven she can handle real combat. They circle each other, looking for openings, and then he lunges. She dodges, uses his momentum against him, and somehow they both end up in the dirt, laughing, breathless. Kellen helps her up, his hand lingering on her arm longer than necessary. "You're getting scary good at this," he says, grinning. "Another year and you'll be able to take down our alpha." It's a joke. A compliment. Nothing inappropriate. But Victoria sees Eric's expression from across the yard, sees the flash of something dark and possessive before he controls it. He strides over, all alpha authority, and the temperature of the entire training ground seems to drop. Kellen, you're needed in the alpha's office. Now. It's not a request. Kellen goes pale, nods, releases Victoria's arm, and practically runs toward the pack house. The other trainees suddenly find reasons to be elsewhere, until it's just Victoria and Eric standing in the empty yard, tension crackling between them like lightning before a storm. He wasn't doing anything wrong, Victoria says, defensive even though she doesn't fully understand why Eric is angry. I know. Eric's voice is tight, controlled, but she can see the muscle jumping in his jaw. He stops. Takes a breath. You should be more careful. Young wolves get attached easily. You don't want to give them the wrong impression. What impression? She asks, genuinely confused. That I'm a person who exists? That I'm allowed to have friends? That's not what He runs a hand through his hair, frustrated. You're not like other wolves, Victoria. He stops. Again, she sees that flash of something in his eyes. You're under my protection. That makes you off limits. They need to remember that. The words hurt more than they should. Off limits. Like she's property. Like she's something to be guarded and kept separate, never allowed to be normal, never allowed to connect with anyone except at a careful distance. I didn't ask for your protection, she says, and her voice comes out colder than she intends. I didn't ask to be a responsibility. Maybe I'd be better off. Don't. The word comes out harsh, almost desperate. Eric closes the distance between them in 2 strides, and suddenly he's right there, close enough that she can feel the heat from his body, can see the flecks of gold starting to bleed into his brown eyes. Don't finish that sentence. Don't even think it. You're here because this is where you belong. You're safe because He stops, swallows whatever he was about to say. Because you're pack. Because you matter. And I won't apologize for making sure everyone knows that. She wants to ask what he almost said. Wants to close the remaining distance, wants to understand why her heart is racing and her skin feels too tight and every instinct is screaming at her to move closer when she should be stepping back. But she doesn't. Because she's 16 and he's 23, and he's her alpha son and her protector and the closest thing to family she has left. So she just nods, accepts the non-explanation, and goes back to her room feeling more alone than ever. The memory dissolves. Victoria opens her eyes in the present, in the cage, and realizes there are tears on her cheeks. 7 years of moments like that. 7 years of Eric being close, but never close enough, protective but never possessive, present but never truly hers. 7 years of both of them dancing around a truth neither was allowed to speak. And she never understood. Never knew he was dying inside too, watching her grow up, wanting her, being forbidden from claiming her by a bond that would kill her if he did. She thought his distance was indifference. Thought his protection was duty. Thought she was just a responsibility he'd taken on out of kindness. She was so blind. Through the muted bond, she reaches out. Sends a feeling more than words. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't understand. I'm sorry you had to carry that alone. The response is immediate, even through the silver suppression. Eric's emotions flood through the connection, relief that she's still alive, fury at the chains binding her, love so fierce it makes her breath catch. And underneath it all, forgiveness. He doesn't blame her for not knowing. How could he, when he worked so hard to make sure she never suspected? Then she reaches through the other bond, the newer one, the one that shouldn't exist, but does anyway. Andrew is harder to read, his emotions more controlled, his thoughts more guarded. But she catches flashes. He's following the transport at a distance, tracking through the forest, calculating the best point to intercept. He's not alone. There are others with him. Outcasts, maybe. Wolves who live outside pack law and answer to no counsel. He's planning a rescue whether she wants one or not. The thought should comfort her. Should make her feel less alone. But instead, it terrifies her. Because if Andrew attacks the transport, if he tries to free her by force, it will start a war. The council will see it as proof that outcasts and Ashwood power combined are too dangerous to leave alive. They'll hunt everyone connected to her, Eric's pack, Andrew's band, anyone who's ever shown her kindness. She can't let that happen. Through the bond, she sends a message to Andrew, pushing through the silver suppression with effort that makes her head pound. Don't attack. Let them take me. I need to see the council. Need to understand what they're planning. Trust me. The response is fury. Pure, undiluted refusal. He didn't spend 3 years searching for her just to watch her march to her execution. He doesn't care about starting wars or council retribution. He cares about getting her out alive. Please, she sends and pours everything she's feeling through the bond. I'm not giving up. I'm not surrendering. But I need to do this my way. I need you to trust me the way I'm trusting you to come for me when the time is right. The fury doesn't disappear, but it banks slightly. Becomes calculating instead of reactive. She can feel him thinking, weighing options, hating every second of it, but acknowledging that maybe, she has a plan he can't see yet. How long? He sends back. How long do I wait before I come for you regardless? 3 days, she decides. Arbitrary, but it gives her time to assess the situation, understand the council's intentions, find weaknesses in their defenses. If I haven't contacted you in 3 days, then come. Bring everyone. Burn it all down. The bond pulses with grim satisfaction. 3 days. He can wait 3 days. Barely. But he'll do it because she asked, because she's giving him permission to unleash hell if she doesn't survive, because even through silver chains and muted connections, he can feel her determination and knows she's not going passively to her death. The transport slows. They've reached the outer boundaries of council territory, neutral ground, belonging to no pack, maintained by elders who've held power for longer than most wolves have been alive. The architecture here is ancient, stone buildings that predate modern construction, grown from the earth itself, using magic that's been lost for generations. This is where the council makes its judgments. Where threats are evaluated, contained, or eliminated. Where Ashwood daughters have been brought for centuries, examined like specimens, and almost always killed because the risk of letting them live outweighs any potential benefit. Victoria should be terrified. Should be planning escape, should be reaching for power she barely understands, should be fighting the chains with every breath. Instead, she's calm, centered, ready, because she's learned something crucial in the last few hours. Something the council doesn't understand and the elders can't fathom. She's not alone anymore. She has 2 mates who would burn the world to save her. She has a pack that's starting to question the old laws. She has power that predates council authority, that comes directly from the moon goddess, that can't be controlled by silver chains or ancient prohibitions. And most importantly, she has a choice. Not the choice the council wants to give her, submit or die. But the choice she's carving out for herself, change the system or break it entirely. The transport stops. The doors open. Morgana appears, flanked by more enforcers, her expression as cold and calculating as ever. "Welcome to the cradle," she says, gesturing to the stone buildings around them. "Where prophecies come to die." Victoria stands, letting the enforcers pull her from the cage, her silver chains rattling with each movement. She looks at the ancient architecture, the symbols carved into stone, the weight of centuries pressing down on this place like a physical force. Then she looks at Morgana and smiles. Not a scared smile. Not a defeated smile. The smile of someone who knows something the elder doesn't. Someone who's already won a game the council doesn't realize they're playing. Prophecies don't die, Victoria says quietly. They just wait for the right person to fulfill them. And as they lead her deeper into the cradle, into the heart of council power, she reaches through both bonds one last time. Sends the same message to both Eric and Andrew, a promise and a warning wrapped together. I love you both. In different ways, for different reasons, but completely. And when this is over, when I walk out of here alive or burn it down trying, you'll understand why I had to do it this way. Trust me. Just trust me. The bonds pulse with emotion, love, fear, faith, and the absolute certainty that whatever happens next will change everything. The council thinks they're bringing a threat to judgment. They have no idea they've just invited revolution through their front door. They bring her to a chamber that smells like death and ancient magic twisted into something dark. Not a courtroom. Not a place for judgment or fair trial. This is an examination room, clinical and cold, with silver restraints built into the walls and floor in patterns that make her skin crawl. The symbols carved everywhere aren't protective, they're extractive. Designed to pull power out of a wolf, to examine it, to bottle it up and study it like a specimen in a jar. 5 elders wait for her. Morgana takes her place among them, and Victoria realizes with cold clarity that this isn't about justice. This isn't about determining if she's a threat. They've already decided. This is about understanding her power before they kill her. About harvesting whatever knowledge they can from the last Ashwood daughter before eliminating the bloodline permanently. The eldest elder, a man so old his face looks carved from weathered stone, gestures to the restraints. Remove the chains. Bind her properly. The enforcers obey. The silver chains come off, and for one glorious moment, Victoria feels her power surge back, feels the bonds in her chest roar to life with full intensity. She could fight, could unleash the silver fire and see how many elders she could take down before they overwhelmed her. But she doesn't. Because she needs to understand what they know. Needs to see the full scope of their conspiracy before she can dismantle it. They force her into the restraints. Silver bands around her wrists, ankles, throat. These are worse than chains, designed not just to suppress power but to cause pain, to keep a wolf constantly suffering so they're too distracted to fight back effectively. The burning is immediate and excruciating, but Victoria keeps her face blank. Refuses to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The ancient elder steps closer, his eyes sharp despite his age. Victoria Ashwood, daughter of Lyanna and Marcus. Last surviving member of a bloodline we thought we'd successfully eliminated. Do you understand why you're here? Because you're afraid of what I represent, Victoria says, her voice steady despite the pain. Because the dual mate bond threatens your control over pack structure. Because you'd rather murder anyone who could change the system than risk losing your power. A flicker of something, respect, maybe, or acknowledgement, crosses the elder's face. Partially correct. But you're missing the larger truth. He gestures, and one of the other elders, a woman with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice, steps forward carrying a book. Not just any book. Ancient, bound in leather that looks organic, almost alive. The cover bears the same symbols as the Sacred Grove's altar, the same patterns that appeared on Victoria's skin when her power awakened. The Ashwood Chronicles, the woman says, her voice clinical. Every prophecy, every bonding, every collapse recorded over 2,000 years. Do you know what we've learned from studying this history? Victoria says nothing. Waits. The dual mate bond doesn't just unite bloodlines, the woman continues, opening the book to a page marked with bloodstains. It transforms them. Each time an Ashwood daughter completes the ritual, each time she binds 2 mates to herself permanently, she creates something new. A pack structure that supersedes alpha authority. A power hierarchy that puts her at the center instead of traditional leadership. She traces one of the passages with a withered finger. The first Ashwood daughter, who completed the bonding 3,000 years ago, didn't just unite 2 packs. She absorbed them. Became their alpha, their moon goddess, their absolute authority. And when she decided the council of that era was corrupt, she destroyed it. Executed every elder, burned their records, rebuilt pack law from the ground up according to her vision. The words settle like stones in Victoria's stomach. You're saying the bond makes me a tyrant. We're saying the bond makes you unstoppable, the ancient elder corrects. Once fully realized, once both mates are claimed and the power is anchored, you become something that can't be challenged by normal pack authority. You become the moon goddess's direct representative on Earth. And anyone who opposes you, Anyone who questions your judgment can be destroyed with a thought, a word, a flare of that silver fire burning in your veins. He leans closer, his breath smelling of herbs and decay. That's why we eliminate Ashwood daughters. Not because we're cruel, not because we fear change, but because absolute power corrupts absolutely, and your bloodline has proven, again and again, that given divine authority, you will use it to reshape the world according to your whims. And we will not allow that to happen again. Victoria's mind races. She thinks about the vision in the sacred grove, about the last Ashwood daughter who seemed so noble, so dedicated to peace. Was that a lie? Was she actually a tyrant who forced compliance through magical domination? Or is this elder twisting history to justify genocide? Show me, she demands. Show me proof that the Ashwood daughters were tyrants. Not your interpretation. Not your version of history. Show me the actual records. The silver-haired elder's lips curve into something that might be a smile. Why? So you can see yourself reflected in their crimes? So you can understand what you'll become if we let you live? She flips through the book, stops on a page covered in precise handwriting and detailed sketches. A woman who looks eerily like Victoria, surrounded by wolves prostrating themselves before her. Cities burning in the background. Bodies stacked like cordwood. Seraphina Ashwood, the elder reads. Completed the dual-mate bond in year 847. United the Western and Eastern territories under her absolute rule. Executed anyone who questioned her authority, claiming the moon goddess spoke through her and her word was divine law. When a small pack tried to maintain independence, she burned their entire territory. 300 wolves dead in a single night. Men, women, children, all consumed by silver fire because they dared to reject her vision of unity. She turns the page. Another woman. More destruction. Celeste Ashwood. Year 1203. Bound 2 rival alphas to herself, absorbed their packs, declared herself goddess queen. Her reign lasted 40 years and was marked by brutal suppression of any dissent. She created laws that gave her complete control over who could mate, who could breed, who could lead. She turned wolves into cattle, breeding them for traits she desired, killing any who showed independence or questioned her breeding programs. Page after page, woman after woman, all bearing the Ashwood mark, all completing the dual-mate bond, all descending into tyranny once they realized the full scope of their power. Every single one, the ancient elder says softly. Every Ashwood daughter who completed the bonding eventually became a monster. Some took years. Some took decades. But the pattern is consistent. Absolute power. Absolute corruption. Absolute devastation when they finally die and the bonds collapse, taking thousands with them. He straightens, and his expression carries no malice. Only weary certainty. That's why we eliminate your bloodline. Not as punishment for crimes you haven't committed yet, but as prevention of crimes history has proven you will commit. The moment you complete that ritual, the moment you bind both mates permanently, you will become something that threatens every pack in every territory. And we will not allow that to happen. Victoria's hands shake in the restraints. She wants to deny it. Wants to scream that she's different, that she would never become a tyrant, that the power wouldn't corrupt her the way it corrupted her ancestors. But she can feel it, can't she? Feel the silver fire burning beneath her skin, waiting to be unleashed. Feel the potential in the bonds, the way they could be used to control, to dominate, to force compliance through magical authority. She felt it in the sacred grove when the power awakened, that intoxicating sense of being more than mortal, more than ordinary, touched by divine purpose that could justify anything. How many of her ancestors started with good intentions? How many truly believed they were creating peace, unity, a better world? And how many realized too late that the power had twisted them, made them into the very monsters the council feared? I see you understand, Morgana says, satisfaction bleeding through her cold composure. You feel it already, don't you? That whisper in the back of your mind telling you that you know better than everyone else, that your vision is clearer, that if only everyone would submit to your authority, everything would be perfect. Victoria closes her eyes. Tries to deny it. Can't. Because Morgana is right. Since the bonds awakened, since the power manifested, there's been a voice growing stronger, telling her that the council is wrong, that pack law is outdated, that if she just claimed both mates and unleashed her full power, she could fix everything. Force the elders to accept change. Make the pack see reason. Create the world she knows should exist. It's seductive, intoxicating, and utterly terrifying because she recognizes it for what it is, the first step toward becoming exactly what they fear. So, what do you want from me? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. If you're going to kill me anyway, why the history lesson? Why not just execute me and be done with it? The ancient elder exchanges glances with the others. Something passes between them, a decision made, a plan agreed upon. Then he turns back to Victoria, and his expression carries something she doesn't expect. Regret. Because there might be another way, he says quietly. A way to preserve your life while preventing the catastrophe your power represents. But it will require a sacrifice you may not be willing to make. Victoria's breath catches. What sacrifice? Severance, the silver-haired elder says. Complete magical severance of both mate bonds. We have a ritual, ancient, painful, irreversible. It will cut you off from both mates permanently, destroy the connections at their root, ensure the dual mate bond can never fully manifest. You'll keep your life, keep your freedom, but you'll be alone. Forever. No mate bonds. No deep connections. No possibility of the power awakening fully enough to be dangerous. The words land like hammer blows. Sever the bonds. Cut herself off from Eric and Andrew permanently. Exist alone for the rest of her life, never feeling their presence through the connections, never experiencing the intimacy of shared emotions and thoughts. And them, she forces out. What happens to Eric and Andrew when you sever the bonds? Silence. Then Morgana speaks, her voice clinical. They'll survive. The pain will be excruciating for several days, possibly weeks. But they'll live. They'll be able to form new mate bonds eventually, move on with their lives. You're the only one who will be permanently scarred, unable to ever bond again, because the severance destroys that capacity in Ashwood bloodlines specifically. Why? Victoria demands. Why make it permanent for me but not them? Because you're the danger, the ancient elder says simply. They're just wolves. Powerful, influential, but ultimately ordinary. You're the one carrying divine magic that could reshape reality. The severance ensures that magic stays dormant, that you can never access the full Ashwood power, because the bonds that would unlock it are destroyed beyond repair. He steps closer, and despite his age, despite his role in genociding her family, there's genuine sympathy in his eyes. I watched your mother make this same choice 20 years ago. Before you were born, before she met your father. The council offered her the same deal, severance in exchange for life. She refused. Said she'd rather die with her bonds intact than live without the possibility of love. And she did die. She and your father both, along with everyone in your pack, because she chose connection over safety. The revelation hits Victoria like ice water. Her mother was given this choice. Her mother refused. And her refusal led directly to the massacre that killed everyone Victoria loved. If she'd accepted, the elder continues, she would still be alive. Your pack would still exist. You would have grown up safe, surrounded by family, never knowing about Ashwood power or mate bonds or any of this. But she chose love. And love destroyed everything. The words are designed to manipulate. Designed to make Victoria feel like accepting severance is honoring her mother's memory by making the smarter choice. And part of her, the part that's tired of fighting, tired of being special, tired of carrying the weight of prophecies she never asked for, wants to accept. Wants to choose safety over connection. Wants to live a long, ordinary life without the constant threat of becoming a tyrant or dying and taking thousands with her. wants to be normal. But another part, the part that felt Eric's love through their bond, that experienced Andrew's fierce devotion, that stood in the sacred grove and claimed her own path forward, that part rebels against the very idea. Because severance isn't just cutting off the bonds. It's cutting off pieces of her soul. It's accepting the Council's version of reality where Ashwood power must be suppressed, where divine connections are too dangerous to allow, where the only safe wolf is one who's been neutered of anything that makes them exceptional. I need to think, she says, stalling. This isn't a decision I can make in minutes. You have until dawn, Morgana says. We perform the severance ritual at first light, whether you consent or not. Your consent simply determines whether we bother with pain management during the process. Refuse, and the severance will be agonizing beyond anything you've experienced. Accept, and we can make it relatively painless. Those are your options. Victoria's mind races. Dawn is hours away. Enough time to reach through the bonds, to tell Eric and Andrew what's happening, to trigger the rescue she told them to wait for. But if they attack the cradle, if they try to free her by force, the Council will see it as confirmation that she's too dangerous to live. They'll kill her immediately rather than risk her escaping. Unless... The thought forms slowly, dangerously. What if she agrees to the severance? What if she pretends to accept their terms, goes through with the ritual, lets them think they've won? She'd lose the bonds, yes. Lose the connections to Eric and Andrew, lose the access to her full power. But she'd also be alive. Free. Able to eventually find another way to challenge the Council without the bonds making her an immediate target. It's a calculated risk. A sacrifice play. And it means trusting that Eric and Andrew would understand, would accept her choice, would not hate her for choosing survival over connection. She's about to speak, about to tell the elders she accepts their terms, when the door to the chamber slams open. A wolf stumbles in, one of the Council enforcers, his face pale with shock. Elders, he gasps. We have a situation. Multiple situations. The Crescent Hollow Pack is mobilizing. Alpha Eric has called every allied pack in 3 territories to march on the cradle. He's demanding the release of the Ashwood daughter, or he'll consider it an act of war. Morgana goes rigid. How many wolves? Current count is over 500. And growing. Packs that haven't allied in generations are answering his call. The enforcer swallows hard. He's invoking the ancient right of mate reclamation. Publicly claiming Victoria as his destined mate, admitted to the bond rejection, announced his intention to complete the claiming regardless of Council prohibition. The chamber erupts. Elders shouting, arguing, some calling for immediate execution, others demanding they use Victoria as leverage to force Eric's surrender. But Victoria barely hears them. Because through the bond, muted by restraints, but still alive, she feels Eric's emotions flooding through. Fury. Determination. Love so fierce it burns. He's not waiting 3 days. He's not letting her face this alone. He's breaking every law, violating every agreement, risking everything to come for her. And then, before the elders can restore order, before they can decide how to respond, another enforcer bursts in. The outcasts, he pants. They've infiltrated the cradle. We don't know how many. They're moving through the lower levels, freeing prisoners, destroying holding cells. There he stops, eyes wide with terror. They're being led by someone marked with the broken moon. The outcast who was with the Ashwood daughter. He's demanding her release, or he'll burn the cradle to the ground. Andrew. Of course Andrew didn't wait. Of course he interpreted her 3-day deadline as a suggestion rather than an order. Of course he's already here, already fighting, already refusing to let her sacrifice herself for political expediency. The silver-haired elder turns to Victoria, and the sympathy is gone from her expression. Only cold fury remains. You planned this. You surrendered willingly to distract us while they mobilized. You played us. No, Victoria says honestly. They planned this. Without telling me. Because they knew I'd try to stop them. Then stop them now, Morgana demands. Order them to stand down. Tell your alpha and your outcast mate to retreat, or we execute you immediately. Prove you're not the threat we believe you are by choosing order over chaos. Victoria looks at the elders. At their faces lined with centuries of making impossible choices, of prioritizing stability over freedom, of eliminating threats before they could fully manifest. She sees their fear, their conviction, their absolute certainty that they're right. And she understands, finally, what her mother understood 20 years ago. Some things are worth dying for. Some connections are worth fighting for. And some systems are so broken that the only way to fix them is to burn them down completely and build something new from the ashes. No, Victoria says quietly. The word carries power, makes the silver fire on her back flare bright enough to illuminate the entire chamber, despite the restraints suppressing her magic. I won't stop them. Because they're right. Because you're wrong. Because the Ashwood daughters who became tyrants did so because they faced worlds that gave them no other choice, submit to council control, or dominate everyone to protect themselves. But I'm not choosing either option. I'm choosing a third path. The one you're too afraid to imagine. The restraints begin to glow, heating up, trying to suppress the rising power. But Victoria pushes through the pain, reaches deep into the silver fire, and for the first time since her power awakened, she doesn't try to control it. She lets it out. The bonds in her chest explode with sensation. She feels Eric miles away, leading an army toward her. She feels Andrew somewhere in the levels below, fighting his way up. She feels both of them completely, fully, with an intimacy that transcends physical distance. And she sends them both the same message, amplified by power the restraints can't fully suppress. I'm done playing by their rules. Come get me. And bring fire. The ancient elder's face goes white. What have you done? What I should have done from the beginning, Victoria says, and silver fire races up the restraints, corroding them, destroying them, freeing her one piece at a time. I've stopped trying to be what you want me to be, and started being what I actually am. The Ashwood daughter. The bridge between worlds. The fire that will either unite the territories or burn them all to ash. And the council's worst nightmare made flesh. The restraints shatter. Not slowly. Not gradually. They explode in a burst of silver light so bright every elder in the chamber throws up their hands to shield their eyes. Metal screams as it tears apart, ancient magic corroding under the weight of power that predates council authority, that comes from the moon goddess herself and answers to no mortal law. Victoria stands free, and she's glowing. The silver fire has spread across every inch of her skin, turning her into something that's half woman and half living flame. Her eyes burn with light that makes the elders step back, makes the enforcers reaching for their weapons hesitate, makes everyone in the chamber suddenly understand exactly what their ancestors feared. This isn't just power. This is divinity made flesh. This is what happens when an Ashwood daughter stops trying to contain herself and lets the full weight of her birthright manifest. You made one critical mistake, Victoria says, and her voice echoes with harmonics that shouldn't be possible from a human throat. The bonds in her chest are fully awake now, amplified by the power coursing through her, connecting her to Eric and Andrew with an intimacy that transcends distance and physical limitation. You assumed I'd become like my ancestors. A tyrant drunk on power, convinced of my own righteousness. But you never considered that maybe, the reason they became monsters wasn't the power itself. It was isolation. Fighting alone against systems designed to destroy them. Being forced to dominate or die. The chamber walls begin to crack. Not from physical force, but from the sheer magical pressure of her presence. The symbols carved into stone, designed to extract and contain power, start glowing in reverse, feeding energy back into her instead of draining it away. The ancient elder finds his voice. Guards. Subdue her. Now. 20 enforcers flood into the chamber, all trained killers, all equipped with silver weapons designed to kill wolves who've become too dangerous. They move with coordinated precision, surrounding her, cutting off escape routes, preparing to strike simultaneously from all angles. Victoria doesn't run, doesn't try to fight them physically. She simply closes her eyes, reaches through both bonds, and pulls. The effect is instantaneous. Every enforcer with even the slightest connection to pack bonds, which is all of them, because they're oath-bound to the council through magical agreements, feels her presence slam into their consciousness. Not controlling them, not dominating their wills, just making them feel what she feels. The rage, the grief, the desperate love for two wolves she refuses to lose. The bone-deep exhaustion of fighting a system designed to destroy anything exceptional. They stumble, lower their weapons. Some drop to their knees, overwhelmed by the emotional onslaught. Because this is the true danger of Ashwood power, not that it can control through force, but that it can make others understand. Can create empathy so profound that fighting becomes impossible. Can forge connections that bypass rational thought and speak directly to the soul. Stop this. Morgana shrieks, her composure finally cracking completely. You're proving exactly what we feared. You're using your power to manipulate. I'm using my power to show you the truth. Victoria's eyes snap open, and the silver fire flares brighter. Every Ashwood daughter who came before me faced this same choice: be controlled or control others. Submit to persecution or become a persecutor. But what if there's another way? What if the power isn't meant to dominate or submit, but to connect? To build bridges instead of walls? The floor beneath her feet cracks, and suddenly roots begin pushing through the ancient stone. Not ordinary roots. These glow with the same silver light, growing impossibly fast, spreading across the chamber floor in patterns that mirror the mark on her back. The cradle itself is responding to her presence, ancient magic recognizing something older, something that predates even these stone walls. This place was built on suppression, Victoria continues, and she can feel the truth of it now, can sense the centuries of power that's been drained from wolves deemed too dangerous, stored in the very foundations of the cradle, waiting for someone who could reclaim it. You built your authority on making wolves afraid of their own potential, on convincing us that being exceptional is dangerous, on eliminating anyone who proved the system wrong. She takes a step forward, and the enforcers scramble back despite themselves. But I'm not going to destroy you. I'm not going to burn the cradle or execute the elders or force everyone to submit to my vision of how the world should be. You know why? The silver-haired elder's voice shakes. Why? Because that would make me exactly what you fear. And I refuse to let your terror define who I become. The chamber doors explode inward. Not from Victoria's power, but from external force. Andrew crashes through first, his wolf form massive and terrifying, his fur matted with blood from the enforcers he fought through to reach her. Behind him, a dozen outcasts in various states of shift, all bearing the broken moon symbol, all moving with the kind of coordination that comes from years surviving outside pack law. Andrew shifts to human form in a fluid motion, and his amber eyes find her immediately. The bond between them flares so bright Victoria gasps, feeling his relief and fury and fierce pride all at once. He's bleeding from a dozen wounds, breathing hard from the fight, but he's here. He came for her just like he promised. You started without me, he says, and despite everything, there's a hint of dark humor in his voice. I'm hurt. Before Victoria can respond, the walls shake. Not from her power this time, but from the sound of hundreds of wolves outside the cradle, howling in unison. Eric's army has arrived. 500 wolves, maybe more, all demanding her release, all willing to go to war with the council itself if necessary. And then Eric himself appears in the doorway, still in human form but barely, his eyes completely gold, his alpha power rolling off him in waves so intense several enforcers drop their weapons just from the pressure of it. He's wearing battle gear, his pack's symbol emblazoned across his chest, and behind him stand wolves from a dozen different territories: Northern Ridge, Southern Plains, Eastern Forest, packs that haven't stood together in generations, all united by a single alpha's call to reclaim his mate. His eyes find Victoria across the chamber, and the bond between them explodes with emotion so intense she can barely breathe. 7 years of buried love, 7 years of careful distance, 7 years of sacrifice, all of it flooding through the connection until there's no space left for anything else. Let her go, Eric says, and his voice carries the weight of absolute command. Not asking, not negotiating, demanding. Let her go, or I bring this entire place down stone by stone. The ancient elder laughs. It's a bitter, hollow sound. And start a war that will consume every territory? Kill thousands just to save one girl? You're proving our point, Eric. The dual mate bond makes wolves irrational. Makes them prioritize personal connection over the greater good. This is exactly why. The greater good? Eric cuts him off, and there's fury in his voice that makes the temperature in the chamber drop. You murdered her entire pack when she was 11 years old. Children. Healers. Wolves who'd done nothing except be born into the wrong bloodline. You call that the greater good. He takes a step into the chamber, and behind him, his army moves closer, a tide of wolves ready to tear the cradle apart. I've spent 7 years playing by your rules. 7 years honoring an agreement that required me to reject my own mate, to watch her suffer, to pretend she meant nothing to me. And for what? So you could bring her here and execute her anyway? So you could continue genociding anyone who threatens your control. Another step. The elders are backing away now, recognizing that the careful balance they've maintained for centuries is about to shatter. I'm done playing by rules designed to keep us weak. Done accepting that council authority supersedes pack loyalty. Done believing that safety requires sacrificing anyone exceptional. He's directly in front of Victoria now, and when he reaches for her, when his hand touches her face, the bond between them flares so bright it's visible, a thread of pure light connecting them. Pulsing with 7 years of suppressed love finally given permission to exist. I claim you, Eric says, and the words carry the weight of ritual, of magic, of divine authority that rivals the council's own. Not as my responsibility. Not as my foster sister. As my mate. My chosen. My equal. And anyone who tries to take you from me will have to go through 500 wolves who believe pack bonds matter more than council fear. Andrew moves to Victoria's other side, his presence solid and grounding. Make that 600, he says. The outcasts stand with her too. We always protect our own. Victoria stands between them, alpha and outcast, pack law and freedom, two halves of an impossible whole, and feels both bonds burning in her chest with equal intensity. Not pulling her apart. Not forcing her to choose. Just existing, acknowledged, powerful, connecting her to two wolves who would burn the world to keep her alive. This is madness, Morgana says, but her voice lacks conviction now. She's seeing the same thing the other elders are seeing, not just 3 wolves united by bonds, but an army united by belief. Belief that the old ways are broken. Belief that council authority isn't absolute. Belief that maybe, just maybe, Ashwood power doesn't have to end in tyranny and destruction. It's not madness, Victoria says, and her voice is calmer now, the silver fire dimming slightly as she gains control. It's evolution. The world has changed. Pack structures have changed. The old prophecies about Ashwood daughters becoming tyrants were true because you gave them no other choice. But I have choices. I have support. I have 2 mates willing to stand with me instead of submitting to me. That changes everything. She takes a breath, feels the power coursing through her, feels the bonds connecting her to Eric and Andrew, feels the weight of hundreds of wolves outside waiting to see what happens next. And she makes a decision that will either save them all or doom them. I'm not completing the ritual, she says. Not today. Maybe not ever. Because I don't need absolute power to change things. I just need enough wolves willing to stand together and demand better. Demand a council that serves instead of controls. Demand pack law that protects instead of persecutes. Demand a world where being exceptional isn't a death sentence. The ancient elder shakes his head. And if we refuse? If we continue hunting Ashwood daughters, Continue eliminating threats before they can manifest. Victoria's eyes harden. Then you'll have to hunt me while I'm surrounded by 600 wolves who've decided I'm worth protecting. You'll have to execute me in front of an army that includes packs from every major territory. You'll have to prove to everyone watching that council authority is more important than justice. And when you do, she lets the silver fire flare one more time, lets them all see exactly how powerful she is, how much destruction she could cause if she chose to. You'll create exactly the martyr you're trying to prevent. Every wolf who witnesses my execution will remember that the council killed an unarmed girl for the crime of being born different. And that memory will do more to destroy your authority than anything I could do while alive. The chamber goes silent. The elders exchange glances, calculating, weighing options. They're trapped and they know it. Execute her and create a rebellion. Let her live and accept that their absolute authority has been challenged. There's no good option. No path forward that preserves the system they've spent centuries maintaining. Finally, the ancient elder speaks. His voice is tired, defeated, carrying the weight of knowing that the world he understood is ending. What do you want? Reform, Victoria says simply. Dismantle the laws that make Ashwood daughters targets. Stop hunting wolves for potential crimes they haven't committed. Create a council that includes representation from outcasts and ordinary pack members, not just elders who've held power for centuries. And most importantly, she looks directly at each elder in turn. Acknowledge that what you did to my family, to every Ashwood daughter before me, was genocide. Not justice. Not protection. Genocide. And it ends now. The terms hang in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. Behind Victoria, 600 wolves wait. Some in wolf form, some human, all ready to fight if the elders refuse. The cradle itself seems to be holding its breath, ancient stones waiting to see if they'll witness another massacre or the birth of something new. Morgana is the first to break. You're asking us to dismantle everything we've built, everything we've sacrificed to maintain. The structure that's kept territories stable for centuries, built on the bodies of wolves you murdered, Andrew interrupts coldly. On the suffering of anyone who didn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable. That's not stability. That's tyranny. And it ends today, one way or another. The ancient elder closes his eyes. When he opens them again, something has shifted in his expression. Resignation, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding. If we agree to these terms, if we begin reform, what guarantee do we have that you won't become what we fear? That the power won't corrupt you eventually? Victoria reaches out, takes Eric's hand on one side and Andrew's on the other. Feels both bonds pulse in perfect synchronization. You have the same guarantee I have that you won't hunt me the moment I turn my back. Faith. Trust. The belief that we're all capable of choosing something better than the cycle of violence and persecution our ancestors locked us into. She squeezes both hands, draws strength from their presence. I'm not asking you to give me power over everyone. I'm asking you to give everyone power over their own lives. To let wolves make their own choices about bonds and leadership and how they want to live. To stop deciding that exceptional equals dangerous and start seeing it as potential for something better. The floor beneath them is covered in silver roots now, glowing softly, connecting to every corner of the chamber. The cradle's foundation, built on extracted power, on suppressed magic, on centuries of making wolves afraid of their own potential, is literally transforming, becoming something new. The old structure can't contain what's happening, can't suppress what's awakening. It will either adapt or collapse, and the elders are being forced to choose which future they want to be part of. We need time, the silver-haired elder says finally, to convene the full council. To discuss terms. 2. You have 3 days, Victoria says, echoing the deadline she gave Andrew. 3 days to present a reform proposal that shows genuine change. Real representation. Actual accountability for past crimes. If you can do that, if you can prove you're willing to transform instead of just making empty promises, then I'll stand down. I'll keep the bonds acknowledged but not fully claimed. I'll give you a chance to prove the system can change without burning everything down. She lets the silver fire flare one final time, making sure every elder sees, understands, internalizes exactly what she's offering them. But if you come for me again, if you send hunters, if you try to eliminate me or any other wolf you deem too dangerous, the temperature in the chamber drops. The walls crack deeper. And for just a moment, they all see what she could become if she wanted to. The tyrant the prophecies warned about. The divine fury that could reshape reality itself. Then I stop holding back. I complete the ritual. I claim both mates fully. And I become exactly what you fear, because you'll have proven that mercy is weakness, and the only way to survive is to dominate completely. The threat hangs in the air like a blade. Then Victoria releases the power, lets the silver fire dim, lets herself become just a girl again, exhausted, hurting, but still standing. 3 days, she repeats. Choose wisely. The ancient elder bows his head. Not submission exactly, but acknowledgement. Recognition that the balance of power has shifted irrevocably and the council will have to adapt or die. 3 days, he agrees. We will convene. We will discuss. And we will see if there's a path forward that doesn't end in ashes and blood. It's not a victory. Not really. But it's not defeat either. It's a pause. A breath. A moment where both sides step back from the edge and acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, there's another way forward. Eric's arm slides around Victoria's waist, supporting her as exhaustion hits. Andrew moves to her other side, and together they turn toward the door, toward the army waiting outside, toward whatever future they're going to build from the ruins of everything that came before. As they step through the doorway, as 600 wolves part to let them pass, Victoria hears the whisper starting. Not fear anymore. Not terror at what she represents. Something else. Something that might be hope or might be the beginning of belief. The girl who faced down the council and lived. The Ashwood daughter who refused to become a tyrant. The bridge between worlds who chose connection over domination. The legend is just beginning. And unlike the stories that came before, unlike the prophecies that ended in collapse and devastation, this one might, just might, end differently. Because for the first time in history, an Ashwood daughter isn't facing the world alone. She has her alpha, her outcast, her army of wolves who decided she was worth protecting. And together, they're going to burn the old world down and build something better from the ashes. They make camp in the old-growth forest, far from the cradle, but close enough to return if the council breaks their word. 600 wolves settling into an uneasy alliance. Northern Ridge wolves sharing space with Southern Plains rivals. Eastern Forest scouts standing watch alongside outcasts who've spent lifetimes avoiding pack territory. All of them bound together by a single moment of choosing unity over fear, change over stability, a girl marked by prophecy over the system designed to destroy her. Victoria sits by the fire Andrew built, wrapped in Eric's cloak, feeling both bonds humming steadily in her chest. They're quieter now. Not the overwhelming flood of emotion from the cradle, but a constant presence, 2 threads of connection that remind her she's not alone. She's never been alone, even when she thought she was. Eric sits on her right, his hand resting on her shoulder, grounding her. He hasn't stopped touching her since they left the cradle, like he's afraid if he lets go she'll disappear, like 7 years of forced distance has left him starving for contact he can finally claim. Andrew stands at the fire's edge, amber eyes reflecting the flames, watching the camp with the careful attention of someone who's spent his life surviving in hostile territory. But every few moments, his gaze drifts back to her, and through their bond she feels his fierce satisfaction that she's alive, she's free, she's his in ways the council can never take away. What happens now? She asks quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. Now we wait, Eric says. 3 days for the council to decide if they're willing to change or if this ends in war. And if they refuse? She already knows the answer, but she needs to hear him say it. Then we fight. His voice is steady, certain, carrying the weight of an alpha who's made his choice and won't be swayed. Every wolf here knows what they signed up for. We stand together, or we don't stand at all. Andrew crouches down beside her, close enough that his warmth joins Eric's on her other side. The outcasts have a saying, better to die on your feet than live on your knees. Every wolf in this camp has decided you're worth the risk. That changing the system is worth the risk. That maybe, just maybe, the world can be different if enough of us refuse to accept how it's always been. The words settle over her like a benediction and a burden combined. Because she understands what they're really saying. If this goes wrong, if the council refuses reform, if the 3 days end in war instead of peace, hundreds will die. Thousands maybe as territories choose sides and the conflict spreads. All because she refused to accept genocide as necessary. All because she chose connection over compliance. I saw them, she says, staring into the flames. In the chamber. The history of every Ashwood daughter who came before me. Every woman who started with good intentions and ended as a tyrant. Everyone who convinced herself that absolute power was necessary to create peace, that forcing submission was the only way to end conflict. She feels both bonds pulse with attention. Both wolves listening completely, giving her space to process what she learned. The elders weren't wrong about the danger, she continues. The power is seductive. Intoxicating. Standing there with silver fire burning through me, feeling like I could reshape reality with a thought, her voice cracks. I understood why they became monsters. Why the magic corrupted them. Because it would be so easy to believe I know better than everyone else. That if people would just listen to me, just submit to my vision, everything would be perfect. But you didn't, Eric says quietly, his thumb tracing circles on her shoulder. You had the power to dominate the elders completely. To break them, control them, force them to accept your terms. And you chose negotiation instead. You chose to give them a chance to change willingly rather than forcing it. That's what makes you different, Andrew adds. Every Ashwood daughter, before you fought alone, had to be strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough to survive without support. But you have us. Have 600 wolves who'll tell you when you're wrong, who'll stand against you if you start becoming what we all fear. You're not isolated. That changes everything. Does it? Victoria wants to believe him. Wants to believe that having support, having connections, having people who'll challenge her is enough to prevent corruption. But she's read the histories now. Seen how many tyrants started with advisors and supporters and people who promised to keep them honest. And how those same advisors eventually became enablers, too afraid of the power to speak truth, too invested in the new order to admit it had become as oppressive as the old. What if I start to change, she asks, and vulnerability bleeds through every word. What if the power starts twisting me and I don't notice until it's too late? What if I become so convinced I'm right that I stop listening, stop caring what anyone else thinks? What if she stops, swallows hard? What if I become exactly what the council feared, and by the time anyone realizes it, it's too late to stop me? Silence. The fire crackles. Around them, the camp is settling down for the night. Wolves from different territories learning to coexist, boundaries dissolving in the face of shared purpose. Then Eric speaks, and his voice carries the weight of 7 years of watching her, protecting her, loving her from a distance that nearly killed them both. Then I'll stop you. I'll stand against you. I'll do whatever it takes to pull you back from the edge, even if it means fighting you, even if it means, his voice wavers. Even if it means severing the bond myself to keep you from becoming something you'd hate. The words should hurt, should feel like betrayal. But instead, they're the most comforting thing anyone's ever said to her. Because he's not promising blind loyalty. He's promising truth. The willingness to love her enough to save her from herself if necessary. Same, Andrew says simply. The outcasts follow strength, but we destroy tyranny wherever we find it. If you cross that line, if you become what your ancestors became, I'll put you down myself. Not because I don't love you. Because I do. And I won't let you live as a monster if the alternative is dying as yourself. Victoria closes her eyes, feels tears sliding down her cheeks. They're promising to kill her if she becomes corrupt. promising to be the check on her power that every other Ashwood daughter lacked. And somehow, that promise is exactly what she needed to hear. Proof that they see her, all of her, including the potential for darkness. And they're choosing to stand with her anyway, not despite the danger, but because of it. "Thank you," she whispers. Both bonds pulse with emotion, love, and determination, and the grim acceptance of what they might have to do someday, if the prophecies prove stronger than hope. The night deepens. Stars emerge overhead, brilliant and distant, watching as the world below tries to remake itself. Victoria sits between her two mates, one who rejected her to save her, one who was thrust into her life by fate neither asked for, and feels more complete than she ever has. More terrified too. More aware of how easily this fragile piece could shatter, how quickly hope could turn to horror if she makes the wrong choice. But she also feels something else. Something that none of her ancestors had, according to the histories the elders showed her. She feels chosen. Not by prophecy or divine mandate or destiny carved in ancient stone. Chosen by 600 wolves who could have abandoned her, could have handed her over to save themselves, could have decided safety mattered more than justice. They chose to stand with her. Chose to risk everything for the possibility of a better world. That's power the Council can never suppress. Authority they can never claim. The simple, revolutionary act of wolves deciding for themselves what's worth protecting, what's worth fighting for, what's worth dying for if necessary. In 3 days, they'll know if the Council accepts reform. If the elders are willing to dismantle centuries of control in exchange for peace. If the system can change from within or if it needs to be burned down and rebuilt from ash. But tonight, right now, sitting between two wolves who love her enough to promise they'll stop her if she becomes a monster, tonight, Victoria allows herself to hope. Hope that she's strong enough to carry this power without being corrupted. Hope that the bonds will anchor her instead of isolating her. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the prophecies don't have to end in devastation and collapse. Hope that she can be the bridge her mother died believing she could be. The fire burns low. Wolves settle into sleep around them. And Victoria sits wrapped in warmth and connection, marked by silver fire and divine purpose, terrified and determined in equal measure. The girl who was called Little Sister for 7 years. The woman who faced down the Council and demanded they bend or break. The Ashwood daughter who chose connection over domination and might just change everything because of it. 3 days until they know if hope is enough. 3 days until the Council decides if evolution is possible or if the old ways will fight to their last breath. 3 days until the world discovers whether the story ends like all the others, in ashes and blood and collapsed bonds that kill thousands. Or whether this one time, love and support and the willingness to hold each other accountable might be enough to break the cycle. She doesn't know which future she's walking toward, but she knows she won't walk toward it alone. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. So I ask you now, as Victoria sits between two wolves who would die for her, surrounded by an army that chose hope over fear, would you have stood with her? When the alpha who called her little sister finally revealed he loved her all along, would you have believed him? When the outcast arrived with a bond she never asked for, would you have trusted him? When she walked into the Council's stronghold knowing she might not walk out, would you have followed? When she stood glowing with power that could dominate the world and chose negotiation instead, would you have seen wisdom or weakness? Is she a hero carving a new path forward? Or is she the beginning of another cycle, another Ashwood daughter who believes she's different right up until the moment the power twists her into something she doesn't recognize? Will the bonds save her or doom her? Will the Council choose evolution or extinction? Will love be enough to anchor divine power, or will history repeat itself in fire and devastation? 3 days. That's all the time between hope and catastrophe. Between revolution and ruin. Between a girl who changed everything and another name added to the list of Ashwood daughters who became exactly what the world feared. But here's what I know. Stories like this, stories about girls marked by fate, bound to impossible choices, choosing to fight rather than submit, these stories don't end. They burn. They spread. They light something inside you that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how many councils try to suppress it, no matter how many prophecies say it's doomed, no matter how many voices whisper that being exceptional is dangerous. Because we all carry fire. We all have the potential to change the world or destroy it. And we all face the choice Victoria faces: burn bright and risk everything, or flicker quietly and be safe. Which would you choose? If this story lit something inside you, if you felt the bond snap, if you burned with Victoria's fury, if you stood with 600 wolves and demanded better, then subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Because here, we tell tales that burn. Tales of wolves who refuse to be tamed. Of power that refuses to be suppressed. Of love that refuses to be denied. Of girls who look at systems designed to destroy them and say, "No, not me. Not today. Not ever." This is just the beginning of Victoria's story. The council's deadline approaches. The bonds grow stronger. The prophecies whisper of catastrophe or transformation, no one knows which yet. And Victoria stands at the center of it all, marked by silver fire, connected to two mates, surrounded by wolves who believe change is possible. Will she prove them right? Or will the elders' fears come true, and another Ashwood daughter will fall to the curse of absolute power? Subscribe. Stay with us. Burn with us. Because the next 3 days will determine everything. And you don't want to miss what happens when a girl who is called Little Sister finally claims her true name. Victoria Ashwood. The bridge between worlds. The flame that will either unite the territories or burn them all to ash.